Hello, everybody. Welcome to Timesphere, where we have timely discussions that are never on time. Scott, we get to actually talk about some relatively timely news today as of we're recording this, which is hilarious because of the Pokemon episode, which came out Monday. The episode we recorded last week for normal Timesphere won't come out until tomorrow, which is Friday of the week we're recording this. And so by the time this episode comes out on Monday,
Mhm.
we'll have
Something else will have already
Oh,
happened.
well, yeah. I
Almost
mean,
guaranteed.
last week we recorded, or the week before, no, like last week we recorded the episode, or the episode we recorded the Sony one, whatever. The Sony episode that's
Mhm.
already out, uh, happened, and then the next day all the Xbox stuff happened. So I'm expecting, like, as we're recording, something's probably going to happen, and we're either not going to
Yeah.
notice or it's going
Mhm.
to happen right as we're wrapping up, and then we'll
Our
talk about it
show
next
is
week.
is our show is great for people who want the news, but just whenever. Like, no rush.
Yeah, well, we've slowly transitioned away from just like news into just talking
Being a
about whatever.
reactionary, yeah.
Yeah, like just
Yeah.
talking about whatever we want to talk about. Like today's a pretty heavy news day, just because a lot of the stuff that's happening
Yeah.
in games is something we want to talk about, and it has like pertinence to a lot of the stuff we care about in the industry, or just the industry at large. I had a whole conversation last night about like uh the counterpick stuff we were doing for our fantasy league, because I was debating on if I wanted to counterpick GTA, just for because
Mhm.
this league we're not doing any. There's no like prizing. There's no actual circumstance of why not have the funny pick and bet
Mhm.
against GTA, even though it's probably going to be a minimum like an 85 when it launches, even if it's a mess. So that thought process led to
Mhm.
discussing, like, having to explain to people in the call I was in, because a lot of them are gamers, but they're not like game industry people, because a lot of
Mhm.
them were like, oh, well, how much would it, like, the industry collapse if GTA failed? I don't want to get too much into that because we'll probably have a conversation about that once we get more information about the game itself later this year.
Yeah.
But I had to explain where it's like, I don't think if GTA failed, the game industry would fail. There would be like some short term repercussions of like some stocks
I think
falling.
it would change
Oh yes,
dramatically.
dramatically, yes. It would have like a lot of like, it would highlight a bunch of issues with like major game development, which is going to be highlighted anyways when that game comes out, because it's going to be a mess in certain
Mhm.
ways, regardless of how polished it is. But the idea is, if that game failed, my concepting of it is, if it failed, it would be a short term detriment, because like a lot of big companies would see their stocks fall, just because the general games industry would see shockwaves. You'd see, obviously, Take Two would suffer massively, just because it is like that's their golden ticket in every single way, shape, and form. So that company itself would not crumble, but it would definitely suffer a lot. And then the short term, like, investments would go down, stocks for like public companies would go down, stuff, and like faith and like that kind of stuff would fall. However, that wouldn't like change where we're at as an industry. I think for big companies it would change, but especially in like the West would change a lot, just because if the golden goose of the games industry when it comes to Western game development failed, then I
Mhm.
don't think a lot of companies would be like, okay, well, we can't take big risks on these IP, like our guaranteed IP anymore. We have to find ways to make it sustainable. And I think that would actually end up being a net positive at some point in the future, because that would like kickstart what a lot of people are talking about with what we'll get into with Highguard in a second, where they kickstart like this big chain reaction of having to actually shift the industry in a massive way to
Mhm.
become more sustainable and less reliant on massive hits, to just outright survive, basically. I don't think Eastern game development would be as affected nearly as much, especially at like the medium level. But uh, the counterpoint that is, if GTA succeeds, the entire industry does benefit. Like, there's no
Yes.
downside if GTA succeeds, because if GTA succeeds, caveat that being, more companies that don't understand how the market is, would then be like, okay, we just need to put all of our eggs into the whatever our big IP basket is, or try and chase this. So
Mhm.
that's still going to be an issue if it succeeds, but that would have been an issue anyways. The idea would be, GTA succeeds, new investment comes in after GTA succeeds massively at like various levels, because a bunch of people would be like, oh, well, games have this potential again. Let's invest in games. So there's
Yeah. I
both ways.
I think we're already moving away from the era of, like, the big game, like, where it's just big AAA releases dominate. I think we've been doing that for a while, but especially in
Last
recent
2 years
years and
specifically, yeah.
last 2 years between Concord, now Highguard, or the Highguard, I would say, like, still a relatively smaller team. A lot of investment in like a big swing
We're
and a
gonna see.
miss.
We're gonna
But
hear a lot about Highguard development within the next like 6 months.
yeah,
But
but even like even games like Marathon came out today, and I think no matter what Marathon does, there's always going to be the people who are going to say like, oh, it's it's not as big as Sony wants, and maybe that's true,
that is going to
but
be true no matter what because they always think the number
yes,
is going to be big enough. I do want to highlight this because we're not going to talk about Marathon much this episode. Uh,
hmm
but the idea that a bunch of people are now pushing back on looking at numbers, like looking at player count, like a lot of people are just like,
I'm so happy for
I don't
that.
want to hear this. I don't want to hear player count. Is what a lot of people are saying because they're
Yeah,
tired of it.
I my somewhat hot, not real take, like I don't actually believe it, you couldn't actually do it, is I think Steam player numbers should be paywalled. I think you should have to like pay a subscription to access them because I'm just so tired of every Dick and Tom just like grabbing like numbers, being like, oh look, game dead. Oh look, number went down, game dead, and
I mean, there's going to be
and like
articles. There's going to be articles within the next like 24 hours talking about how Slay the Spire 2's early access is like having more players than Marathon. And it's like, okay, one of the most beloved indie games of all time
yeah,
with like a
something
multiplayer
that
element
is
now.
like yeah, with a multiplayer element, something that has like
It,
really is one of the first in terms of like the roguelite,
yeah,
the
endless
deck builder.
replayability, like
Yeah.
super high quality, like one of the most look forward to games of the last like 5 years, basically. And the other one is a live service game that people had a lot of questions about. And
Yeah.
because it's a live service game, there's going to be flux in terms of player count, more so than a single player game that is in its first couple days out. Numbers don't matter for stuff like this. And I saw Mike Drucker have a post earlier. I don't have it up, but he was like, I've been part of games where 10,000 players was like the stand, like what we were like blew us away, and 10,000 players was a death knell. It happens on both sides. Both
Mhm.
opinions are correct. Both opinions matter to someone. I think both opinions are stupid because no matter what, you should plan around sustainability for your game. That's
Mhm.
paraphrasing, obviously, but I agree with that, and we can get it. We can just get into Highguard. I will say, we're gonna try and be better about like, obviously just like having conversations and stuff. So if you want to get involved in these conversations, obviously comment below. We definitely want to hear your thoughts on all of the topics we talk about. So like comment below, hit us up on socials. The email for the podcast that we use for just like socials and everything is in the description. So if you have a comment that you want us to read in more depth than maybe a YouTube comment or something that you want to have brought up on the show, maybe we'll start doing like a reader corner. We'll probably formalize that a little bit with like a submission box or like a Google Asks or something within the next couple episodes, just so we have a way for people to actually submit that. But we do want to hear back from you. So like, obviously subscribe to the podcast, number go up makes us happy, but also just so you guys can keep up with the conversations because we do post literally every week outside of like the odd, we've been relatively consistent for almost a year now.
Yeah,
it,
it's true.
it'll be a year in like a couple months. So
Couple months.
couple months.
We
Well,
did it.
hey, we're about to hit episode 50. So like if
50 over like a 3 year, two and a half, 3 year
yeah,
period, I
two and a half
guess.
September ish 2024 was when we started or when we were doing like our testing. So we're gonna hit our 3 year anniversary and we're gonna have like half the amount of episodes that most podcasts have in 3 years, and I'm actually going to be really proud of that because I had to explain to people because I started streaming again. That's another thing we're going to talk about
Mhm.
later. So I started like what I talked about on the Pokemon episode, which the Pokemon episode, if you have any interest in anything that was announced at Pokemon Day, we'll talk a little bit about Pokopia later. But if you have any interest about like what was announced during Pokemon Day, Wind and Waves, which is Gen 10, the next big games that are going to be coming out in 2027, and just Game Freak history or Game Freak development timelines in general. My buddy Lou, who is like an archivist and historian for Pokemon, specifically in like the animated territory and a bunch of like older games, came on, and we had a 4.5 hour discussion about like everything that was announced. We went super deep into like a bunch of like the really niche announcements, talking about like the history of like Fire and Leaf Green, ports, development timelines for like new games, old games. If you want to know why like Pokemon Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet launched in such drastically different ways, and like what Game Freak's like timeline of how they basically been on a crunch since like Ruby and Sapphire and the Game Boy Advance. That's a podcast you'll probably want to go listen to, because I'm not getting into that with Scott. That'd be, not only would I get all the details wrong because I'm not as researched into everything as Lou is, but also Scott has no Pokemon like wherewithal.
If you want to watch my eyes glaze over a period of 2.5 hours, then we can do that. But
Yeah,
otherwise, I don't think I don't think people
but
will be very pleased with that.
yeah, but I started streaming again, and I started doing the process of the re-review that I was talking about, where I started playing a vanilla Pokemon Blue on stream, and so I've been doing content again, and a bunch of my content friends are like, "Oh, you're doing content again? Are you gonna like do content?" And I'm like, "Well, first off, what do you mean by content? Because I've been doing a podcast for like going on a year and a half at this point, relatively some with somewhat consistency. Yeah, sure, I'm gonna start streaming again, but like, am I gonna start making like short content frequently? Who knows? Am I gonna like start doing video essays? Probably not. It's just like I don't the content element of this is still something that I'm like, I don't want to do content. I just want like to get paid to write about games or to talk about games. Being a content creator is like, unfortunately, the most consistent way I can do that without having to rely on spending multiple nights a week researching and writing for no return. So
yeah, it's content is always just like, it's something that I like, I thought of doing over the years, just like, maybe it's like, oh, maybe I should do like when Valorant first started getting big, it's like maybe I do streaming, maybe I do like I thought about maybe, I for a while I did after being gone from Dot, I did a newsletter.
yeah.
Mostly because, funny enough, like toward the end of the days at Dot, they're like, "We want you to do newsletters."
Yeah,
I was like,
newsletter.
"Okay,
I
here's an
remember
idea
them
for one."
talking
And
about
then they were like, "We're letting you go." It's like, "Well, I'm gonna keep doing the newsletter then," because I came up with this big idea for it. And I've been, once in a while, I think about maybe shifting that over to like a weekly short form video, because like, like the Plat Chat podcast is like really all you need. It's tricky. The Plat Chat podcast is really all you need from like a competitive Valorant. It's entertaining. They cover all 4 regions. They dive into every detail and every story. But like, I was like, there's probably some people who don't have 3 hours to sit down and watch this whole thing. So maybe like a shorter thing, like for them. Like I came up with some ideas, but it's like, it's
You have
such,
to really like it.
you have to really like it, and the first part is such an uphill battle. Like, starting from, once you get some momentum, I feel like it gets a lot easier. But getting that momentum in the start, I just feel like is really hard. And
Well,
I don't envy anyone who has
no.
taken on that challenge.
Well, so that Tuesday was my first stream back, and I'm planning to do 3 streams a week, right? I had like 6 concurrent viewers, which is about what I had when I was doing somewhat relative, like when I was just streaming on and off again back in like like 2020, 2021, and then on and off again throughout the years. I usually have about like 5 to 6 people watching, mostly friends or people like acquaintances or whatever. I got an email where it's like, you're in the top 25% of streamers, and I'm like, yeah, I know, because I know how like stream metrics work, where it's like, if you have 6 people watching, you're like already up there in terms of like numbers. Like if you get like double digit viewers, you're in the top 15%. If you get 20 plus viewers, you're in the top 8%. You get anywhere close to 100, you're in the top 5% minimum. Like it's not like the streaming metrics that people think are success. Like you can relatively make a living streaming, depending on how you diversify your income and what else you're doing, in the like high double digit, low triple digit numbers in terms of viewership, depending on like who's watching you, how many like donations and subscriptions, and like if you have a Patreon or something too. Like there's and other content streams. But I so agree about like the starting from nothing. That's why like when we ask you to like like and subscribe and comment and stuff, it's less so because we want this to be like feasible for a job, because neither of us when we started this had like the notion that this would be our job, nor do we want to do content for a living. Both Scott and I both like doing other things for work. Like we actually liked our jobs. And like Scott, I assume you like your job now.
I do like my job now. I mean, here's the thing, I'm not, like, opposed to the idea of doing content. I think it would be
Yeah,
quite fun. I just think it takes a lot of time and energy and resources to get to a point where it is sustainable.
or it's worth it to
Even
like invest into doing it full time.
exact yeah, exactly, and you do have to, like, really and I enjoy doing this. It's like, would I enjoy doing this 40, 50, 60 hours a week? Maybe not. Um, I've done a stream. I feel like what I think my last stream was? I think it was, oh god, what was Shroud's game called? Spectre Divide.
Mm,
That was my last stream. I played the early access test for that. And I maybe I got like 3 or 4 concurrents at
yeah,
some point. But it was fun. It's just like and it's like I love doing early access for games like that because everyone doesn't know what they're doing, and so it's kinda like more
it's
even
a lot of fun.
playing field.
It What I don't like about early access is when you do the press, when you're in press lobbies or early access
Mm,
lobbies with like press and media, because
mhm,
if you ever do that, if you ever did that for Overwatch, I can't remember what if it was like it was Coliseum. I did it for Coliseum, the big update for Overwatch 2 when Coliseum and
mhm.
like the new changes were coming out for that.
Or what
God,
Stadium or Coliseum?
stadium, and then also the just when they were doing all the reworks were the skill
Yeah,
trees,
okay.
the
Right,
hero
right.
updates. I played both of those in like early access in with like in the media test, but media for Overwatch is like all the streamers plus like all the media people for the first like 2 days before it goes like where you
Mhm.
can stream it. So I was getting my ass beat by
Oh.
like by
Oh,
pros.
I can one up you. I did the Valorant early
I
access
remember
test a
I think you've
lot,
told me this, but yeah,
and so I would play with a few media people, a lot of streamers, and a lot of
yeah,
streamers also are pro players. So I have like, I'm going up against like Tens and Zekin and like guys who are like considered the best of the best on the pro scene, not just like
yeah, and like
they're not
media
just
or
pros,
whatever.
they're like really really good pros. And I'm just like, I'll get one kill on Tens. I'll be like, that's my highlight. I got him once. That is, it's like playing against an NBA player. It's like if I can get one bucket, I'm happy.
Yeah. That's like the same thing happened with me in like Tekken 8. It's like loading up into the online lobbies for Tekken 8 before the game came out. It's like, who am I fighting against? Am I fighting against a media person that I know, or am I fighting against like or
How
like
high?
someone who compete? Yeah, fighting against someone who competes at Evo every year, like that kind of stuff. Uh, but yeah, no, like content's hard. The reason we always ask, and we're bad at asking, and I'm bad at promoting, and we don't do short content, which I should change, but that's also more effort on top of everything else we're doing.
Yeah.
Is like when we ask for like likes and subscribes and comments and stuff, it's not just that we like to see the number go up, it's also like the engagement actually drives us to do better and to
Mhm.
engage with the content more than we do, because like we record this and I usually edit it like a day and a half before it goes up. I do the editing, and while it's editing and rendering and stuff, I make the graphic. I usually have a lot of fun making the dumb thumbnails, because I think of a dumb stupid joke and then edit it together with the format and have fun doing that. And then I throw the description together, and that's usually it. And then I share it out when it goes live. And sometimes I'll share it out a couple different times. Most of the time, share it out once or twice, and then that's it for the week. And we get 30 views on an episode. Pretty happy with that.
Mhm.
But the more like engagement we get with the pod, the more I want to like add new segments to the show, where it's like, oh, we're taking like comments from the audience or taking questions, which if you want to like pop by a stream or something, I like the last Pokemon stream, half the stream was me talking about like whatever people wanted to talk about games in the chat. Like if you want to pop by a stream or leave a comment here about something you want to hear us talk about, I'm more than happy to like talk about that kind of stuff. But yeah, so the more, basically what we're saying is, the more engagement we get in terms of like comments or feedback, the more the show will change, and hopefully the more we'll actually like do with the show, because the Pokemon episode is going to be a relatively recurring thing. I've talked about it, and I talked about it at the end of that episode somewhere within the last 30 minutes of the 4 hours, where on top of doing like the re-reviews, which I'm going to have focus episodes on those, where I bring on someone to talk about that generation of Pokemon in depth, and like our playthrough and our feelings of the game then and the game now, all that kind of stuff. I want to also have just detailed episodes talking about like Pocopia is reviewing really well right now, and a lot of people were really surprised by it. A lot of people didn't know the team making it was like doing what they were doing with it.
Mhm.
Just the idea that Game Freak could partner with these teams more frequently especially the development history behind the game, because it's had a very troubled development period. That kind of stuff is super interesting. So I want to talk more about that. Obviously, Champions comes out next month, which is super competitive. I'm going to be streaming that. I'm going to be playing a lot of Champions, talking a lot about Champions, because I have a lot of concerns about that game. Also, I don't think that the episode, actually, the article might be out by the time this goes up, depending on how much Kin is doing on Booktopia. But I was doing some talking with Kin Shepard over at Kotaku for an article about Champions specifically, because he wanted to get actual like input from people who are involved in the VGC scene or play competitive Pokemon. So talked a lot about him about that. But we're going to be doing more of that. There's going to be more content, especially now that I'm actively doing live stuff. I'm sure Scott will join me for some live stuff, especially once I get dragged into doing some. I'm sure there'll be some games that we'll end up doing together. But yeah,
is Ken, who wrote at Kotaku? Who wrote the thirst trap piece about Leon at Resident Evil?
Was that Ken? That was Ken.
Okay. I saw that and I was like, good lord.
Yeah, Ken is great.
You know, good for them.
Yeah. I'm so glad Kotaku
has
I
forgot the title. Leon Scott Kennedy, I'm on prep, is insane.
Yep.
It is insane.
Ken is the best.
Yeah. I thought that was. I really enjoyed that. That's really funny. I did want to talk to you before we get into the stories. I did briefly want to just say a little bit about Marathon. I think I might collect my thoughts and maybe we can have like a bigger.
I want to. That's why I was saying we're not going to talk about it much this week, because it just came out and like obviously you played the Server Slam, and you're probably going to be playing with like Xavier and Mango and Dez like quite a bit like this week leading into next week's episode. So. Go ahead and give your thoughts from the Server Slam and kind of your general, and then we'll touch on it again next week when you can talk about it more in depth as like a final product.
Yeah, I really like the gameplay loop. I think visually it's just so impressive. I mean, what we said from the beginning, we knew the gunplay was going to be good, and it is, and it feels really good. From the one round I got to play, I agree, the gunplay was good. Gunplay is good. Yeah, it's like there were a lot of technical issues, which was annoying. Mostly the thing I wanted to say instead of giving my impression, I just want to say I kind of feel bad for the team. Like they're like, all right, we made it through like the initial launch where people weren't super high on it. There was the art, the art stealing story, and that like there are people who still like. I was in a Discord yesterday called for my people who regularly play Counter-Strike, and it got brought up because a friend of mine. He played he really went hard in the Server Slam. He played like 50 plus hours, like way more than I did. And we talked about shells. And so we were talking about the shells, and someone's like, "Oh, who are you like? What are you talking about?" So we're talking about Marathon. And he goes, "Oh," and he was saying how and somene's like, "Oh yeah, I just don't want to support that game because of like
because of the art theft,
the art thing." Yeah. But they weren't even aware that about like how it was resolved at Sony essentially, or
I had this conversation in another server the other day about it too, where someone was like, "Oh, I'm not going to support. I don't want to support the game because of the art thing," and I'm like, totally valid if that's like something you don't want to do. I'm not going to fault you for that, but don't go spreading that without also knowing that it concluded in a way that was like good with the artist too. The whole situation sucks.
He said he was generously compensated. Yes. I would imagine he probably got more in this compensation after, as opposed to when they initially announced it.
Oh, 100%. Also, I'm sure that like he might even get some kind of credit in the like in the game itself.
And also because of the headlines, it probably like maybe got him on the radar of like, I'm not saying Bungie did the right thing, but like,
no, absolutely not. Still a terrible situation.
Indirectly, it might have
indirectly the artist definitely came out better because of the publicity, because of the eventual payment, and because of whatever might come out of it in the future. Still sucks. Yeah. Like net positive for the artist after the fact. Still not going to blame anybody for skipping the game because of something like that.
But I guess the reason, the point I want to make is like, it's like, okay, they made it through like the initial launch where people were like, and so many people who were like, I like the look, I like all this, but I don't want an extraction shooter, and like, and everything to get to this point and get to this launch. Like finally, we made it to launch day. We've got a bit of momentum. People like the Server Slam, blah blah, etc. Like, all right, here it is. And then it's like, okay, here's Sway Aspire 2. And they're like, damn it! Like they got all the way to the launch, and then they're like, oh, here's here's a long-awaited sequel to a beloved indie classic that hundreds of thousands of people are gonna play, and they're just like, come on, really? Today of all days? Because we're gonna see like headlines. It's like, oh, like Slay the Spire 2 clears marathon on this day of launch, doubles its player count, and it's just like kind of feel bad for the people who are working on this game. Like they just have just feel like it's been such an uphill battle, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm gonna keep supporting it. I'm gonna keep playing it. I pre-ordered it. I pre-ordered the deluxe. I was like, if it comes with a battle pass that I was probably gonna buy anyway, sure, whatever, I'll take it. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to play it. But
you know what we're not gonna get to play anymore?
I tell you, battle pass I'm not buying.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, they guarantee it for free, but not buying season 1 or next season.
Season 2 or whatever. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's gonna be dead in a week, anyways. So.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyways. So I'm probably gonna have to record after this. I'm probably gonna have to record a preamble for the last episode because we talked about Highguard. This is the third time I've had to have to record a preamble because of Highguard. Like specifically, and just be like, hey, we know Highguard thing. It's gonna be talked about next week. Don't worry about it. Anyways.
The life and death cycle of this game is so fast that it's constantly made us have to change, like put a new thing at the beginning of the show.
I've stopped putting Highguard in our headlines
something else
just because I can't
it's gonna be
outdated.
By the time this comes up, there's gonna be like, Xbox has bought Wildlight and they're bringing back Highguard, and it's like, what?
Look, okay, so
let's get to. I'll go through. I'll read the.
Yeah, go ahead and read this. Basically, the gist is Highguard shutting down less than 2 months after launch.
Yeah. So this is from Andy Robinson and VGC. 3 months after closing the Game Awards, Highguard is officially shutting down. It launched on January 26th. We're just over a month, like a month and a half since it came out. It is going to shut down on March 12th, which is a week from today, as of the day of recording.
Yes.
And so here is the.
I have the full statement here from their account on Twitter because they kind of parse it out in the article itself. So here's the full statement today. This is from the Play Highguard Twitter account. It's today.
This is from Wildlight.
Wildlight Entertainment. Yeah.
Developers.
Today we're sharing difficult news. We made the decision to permanently shut down Highguard on March 12th. Since launch, more than 2 million players have stepped into Highguard's world. You shared feedback, created content, and many believed in what we were building. For that, we are deeply grateful. Despite the passion and hard work on of our team, this is just a side note there, most of the team that got laid off 2 weeks after the game came out, we have not been able to build a sustainable player base to support the game long term. Servers will remain online until March 12th. We hope you'll jump in with us one more time to show your support and get these final great matches in while you still can. The team is excited to release one final game update. To enjoy the remaining life of the game, we'll be adding a new warden, a new weapon, account level progression, and skill trees. Full patch notes are coming, and we're targeting tonight or tomorrow for morning for the patch. That is out now as of us recording this. From all of Wildlight, thank you for playing, supporting us, and for being part of Highguard's story. I want to add this because this is the most important point I want to make about this game before we get into like life cycle shit and all the other stuff people have been talking about. Again, the fact that we are not even 2 months into this game, not only is the game getting shut down and all the player count stuff, which this is an actual relevant player count thing because the player count is what's getting this game killed, because these devs and all these other reports that we've seen come out since were so high on their own ego, and not the devs, the people in charge, I should say, were so high on their own ego, and we talked about this in last week's episodes, where it's like that they thought they could just do Apex Legends again. Because they did Apex Legends once at EA, thought they could do Apex Legends again 7 years later, and what we went into detail back then: different landscape, different team, different things that people are looking for, more competition for what you're actually doing with your time in the not even just in gaming, but in like general, not even counting like live service stuff. So the fact that you release this game with one mode, 3v3, and like not even like competitive out at launch. The next, barely a week later, 5v5. Barely a week and a half later, oh, we're removing all the stuff that makes Highguard and turning it into basically just hero shooter siege. Oh, now we're launching new hero, new weapon, new this, player progression for your accounts, and a skill tree. What does that even mean? I'm not loading up at the game again. This game was dead to me after a week. just because it did not grab me and I wasn't going to get interested. But the fact that they had all this, like we're a month in essentially, like if we're talking like a full like launch cycle, we're a month in a change into the
Mhm.
launch cycle, and they are like, oh yeah, we had all this that was ready to go by the time we launched season 2 or whatever they're calling it. Like
Mhm.
this game is a case study in how not to launch a live service game at this point
Mhm. Yeah.
in
Yeah,
like a different way than Concord. Different.
yeah, very, very different.
Mm.
This is the I I think we can I think we can effectively say that the Game Awards isn't really the Game Awards reveal is probably the least problematic thing about this.
It
It's
is.
just funny because prior to this game coming out, that was like the big talking point. It's like, oh, is the fact that it came on last was the one big thing kind of let people down.
It
Is that
hurt.
going to sabotage it?
It hurt it in a way that,
I
well,
disagree.
no,
I think
it hurt
it
it
got
in a way that, because we talked about this a lot, right? A couple different
Mhm.
times on the pod. It hurt it in a way because of how the devs ended up handling everything after the launch, not because of the lead up, in everything
Mhm.
after, because it showed that even with their like shadow drop, even if they didn't have that,
Mhm.
like they still didn't have a plan for how to handle this properly. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, go ahead. I
yeah, I think the launch. I mean, who's to say how it would have changed? But I still don't think even if they did the shadow drop and people, and even if even the shadow drop got people interested because like, oh, it's the Apex team and oh, that's what they did for Apex. I don't think they would have even reached the peak they got in day one, about
I
100,000
agree with that.
players.
Yeah,
If it was the shadow drop and everything, and they went to original plan. But I think you make a good point that they should have adjusted their strategy if they were going to have this big moment at the Game Awards, and they just didn't.
they should have
And
pivoted
then it
away
just
from the shadow drop and started doing actual marketing within that month. They had a they knew probably 2 months ahead. I don't
Mhm,
know what the exact timeline is, but they probably knew at least 2 months ahead that they were getting a spot, if not the last spot,
mhm.
in the Game Awards lineup.
But I
So
think the
they could have
bigger
pivoted.
story is that the game just really didn't have anything that was grabbing
Yep.
people. You know, I'm not. I know. So we weren't going to talk about Marathon much, but Marathon. I know it's not for everyone. There's going to be people who don't like it, but Marathon has stuff that grabs you, whether it's the visuals, whether it's the extraction gameplay, whether it's the factions, the voice acting, there's stuff in there. Just the world building itself is also super cool. There's stuff there that grabs you, and there really was nothing in Highguard
No,
that did that. And
agreed.
this goes back to your point about there not being
Well,
like
yeah.
there
So
not being any early access testing, not being any closed alphas or anything like that,
yeah,
and like not
nothing that
putting
we
the
could
team
we
out.
didn't get a grasp of what the game was. We didn't get marketing for what the game was. What we all thought the game was going to be wasn't what the game actually ended up being at launch. Because like, and we talked that to death. I do want to add this before we get into that, just that part of the discussion. So this is from the Bloomberg report that initially was like, oh yeah, Tencent quietly funded this, then pulled out, which is why the cuts happened 2 weeks after launch, is because the soft launch of the game, basically Tencent pulled out of whatever part. Basically, they probably had like a wave agreement of like, hey, we're gonna fund you this much pre-launch if you meet these metrics, or we agreed, or we like what we see, we'll fund this much post launch or whatever. It was developed for multiple years, and it had a year of post launch content, which is the normal. This is something I always praise, despite its hit or miss record with a bunch of its live service stuff or like post launch, just like messy games in general. Bandai Namco typically has at least a year of content ready for whatever game it has,
Mhm.
whatever game it launches. Like Dragon Ball: The Breakers is always going to be mind blowing to me. Dragon Ball games in general, like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, just is still getting updates to this day, and I reviewed that game in 2020 or 2021. But like Dragon Ball: The Breakers, which is like the Dragon Ball. Let's go
Mhm.
ahead.
I was gonna say, I think the High Guard people thought they had a longer runway than they
They did.
did. I think them rapidly releasing 5v5, then the new mode, then heroes and all that stuff. That's mostly they realized that their shelf life was a lot shorter than they thought. And
I
they're like,
think the
well, we already
siege
made it,
pivot, the
so
pivot to remove the middle part, I think that was when it was like this game is done.
yeah. I think when the 5v5 thing, the 5v5 was like, oh well, it's what people wanting. It's the biggest complaint. We can do that. And then when that didn't really do anything to help, it was
They
like,
were
okay,
scrambling.
now
Yeah.
we yeah. And I think even with the moves they were undertaking when they were scrambling, um, removing the siege stuff, putting heroes in, sort of quickly moving to the next season. They're like, I think they knew at that point that
I
this
think they
was
probably knew
going to be
before the
coming.
5v5. I think they saw the writing on the wall and were just trying anything to
Mhm.
salvage whatever they could, or maybe make an appeal to like maybe get other areas of funding, or get something to latch onto that maybe keep the game alive a little bit longer, even with the smaller team. But yeah,
Mhm.
this game is. Uh, oh no, this is a Blue Sky post from Danny O'Dwyer over at No Clip, where he's like, my feelings on these large studios tanking after one game is there are creatives out there who don't realize they've aged out of the industry they previously were part of successful stories in. The market these days is wildly more complex than it was even a decade ago, and they probably lost the pulse. I've interviewed a lot of visionaries from the past 30 years of development, and a common arc for those who have chased big budget success specifically is ultimately failing to do so consistently and going back to work on smaller games. It's hard to stay on top of the pop charts for decades, folks. That said, I've also met a lot of game dev vets who never stood on an E3 stage, but everyone else at that studio loves because they've gotten really good at the thing they've been doing for 30 years. I'm painting with a broad brush here, folks. I guess my point is that Peter Principle is the thing. Like, this idea that you have to immediately succeed is what I talked
Mhm.
about this on stream when I was playing Pokemon, because the idea that Pokemon didn't catch on for like 3 months in Japan
Mhm.
when it initially launched. Now, Red and Green are very rough games, the originals, before they did Red and Blue for the Western release and then re-release them in Japan, which is the version that all of us have played for the most part. Those games didn't catch on initially. Imagine if Pokemon, like, which single player games get judged differently, but for 2 months, imagine Pokemon doesn't catch on, and it was a game that they're like, oh, we're gonna pull it from shelves.
Mhm.
Completely different conversation point there, but like Highguard was never going to do that. Highguard released into a market that was it's already saturated. It's getting more saturated by the
Mhm.
day. We're seeing
Yep.
a bunch of what's the space like team game that we were talking about playing that we got for free on Epic,
Oh,
Wild Gate,
Wildgate,
something
yeah.
like that. That's still getting updates. So like,
Mhm.
even though that one, like, they admitted that it didn't hit like the metrics they wanted, and when that came out, both of us were like, that's a really cool idea, and I wish we could give it more like space to talk about it, or we had time to play it and
Mhm.
stuff. But if a
Skull and
game,
Bone still gets updates, and
well, okay,
that
well, that's
surprises me every time I see it.
that's probably more so because like the agreements that they had with during that development, like that game would have died if it didn't have some of the agreements that they had in place at Ubisoft to
Wait,
develop
do they
that
have,
game.
like, agreements, like, with, like, the country of Singapore
Yes,
itself? Like, with the government?
with
Okay,
that
maybe
why it
that's
couldn't.
why.
That's I
Okay.
don't. I'm pretty sure that's why it couldn't get canned. I don't know about like
Mm,
the updates. I don't know what that how that still ties into it, but I like who knows.
mhm,
But like these games that come out and then immediately flop, like a lot of these games get
mhm,
like because this is not the only case of a game that has like a bunch of really talented people from a former big developer that went off on their own to make a thing, and then they do it and then they eventually have to fold it because it doesn't end up working out. But most of those games you don't hear about it happening to this amount, and usually it's like a 6 month span. They try it for 6 months, it doesn't catch on to this to where they need it to remain feasible to continue developing the game, and and then they move on. Whether the studio closes or not, they end up moving on, or they find out that like a lot of these like quote unquote friend swap games do, where it's
mm,
like we're going to develop this game in like a very like specific kind of way at a specific scale, and we're going to aim to hit this market and hope that it catches on to the point where we get like a dedicated audience that's there for like however long they want to be, and then we get like a little bit of a zeitgeist where a bunch of people play for like a weekend or two. Like there's a whole bunch of in between there, but I think that we
and it really depends based on, like, if you're a free-to-play game or if you're a premium game, because
yes,
if you get a bunch of upfront people to play to buy the premium game, even if they do fall off, I mean, in a way, you kinda
you recoup the
you
cost
got
still,
the yeah, you got
even
the
if you lose
purchases
the
out of the
numbers
way.
eventually, and then you can move on to the
Well,
next thing.
that's potentially what we're kinda seeing with Marathon, because, like, it according just to the Steam, it is one of the top sellers, even if it's not the top of the player charts right now, there and I think because it is a premium game, there is the expectation that like, um, people don't have to start playing right away. It's like
Yeah,
I
they'll play
bought
on
the
like
game. It's
Saturday.
not
It's a
it's not
Thursday.
it's not going anywhere. I don't have to like grind missions to get like,
You're not worried about
like
it shutting down or disappearing.
exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, well, I mean, like long term, I'm a little bit
Okay,
worried about that,
but
sure, but
you're less worried about Marathon doing that than you
then
would
a high
be
guard, yeah,
than a high
or a
guard
high,
or like a Supervive or something like that
right,
kind of
yeah.
stuff, because those are from people that are new and they're not published by Sony. And we'll get into Sony here in a
And
minute,
they're
but
free to play games, so so you could just get people who come in and try it, and then you've gotten pretty much like
you've gotten your
nothing
attention span from
financially
them.
out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Frank, what was I gonna say? There was something I was gonna bring up about the premium element, where it's like the premium games are the only time I think player count matters. Because I think if you can look at a premium free to play games, I don't care if your game is free to play. Like if you're a Marvel Rivals or if you're a Overwatch or you're whatever, those numbers are going to fluctuate so heavily depending on what your update cycle is, how late into
Mhm.
like a season you are, that kind of stuff. I don't care. I care about like whenever I go look at like Peak, essentially, where it's like Peak is X cost, had its moment already, but there are still X amount of people going back to play it, whether they bought it
Yeah.
then, now, whatever. I still have friends that go play Peak all the time. Those kind of games, I care about the player numbers because that's how you can quantify if the game
Mhm.
was a success,
Yeah.
because you know how much that game costs. In your head, you can do rough math of if you have X amount of people playing this game at any given time, even if you're just taking the peak number of Peak, use that number, do the math. That's roughly how much they make, regardless of whatever version of the cut Steam is taking.
Mhm.
And then you
You
can
know,
judge off of that. I think that's more useful than a free to play model, because that's not where the money comes from, and they also need to retain those people indefinitely.
yeah. And so if you look at the charts, I mean, Slate Aspire 2 is just came out today, so we can't really look at that. But Arc
Yeah.
Raiders is still at 187,000 strong, third most played game, and it's the highest premium game, even with Slate Aspire out, even with Marathon out, and all these other games. So I mean, they're still doing really well. Rust is not far behind, and Rust has been out for a good long time now, and it's still like at its base price, if it's not on sale, it's still $40, and 161,000 thousand players.
It's a known quantity,
Resident Evil Requiem. I mean, I know it just kind of came out, but still, it's still over 100K.
which is
Um,
that's incredible, because that's the first big premium game of the year. Like regardless of what people were talking about, like
yeah,
with like that's the first name
full
brand in
$70. Yeah.
house. Like
Mhm.
my little cousin was texting me about playing Resident Evil 7 because he went through and played all the Resis last year. And he's like, I'm
Yeah.
so excited for this game. Like, can you tell me anything about it? Because I know you have friends that have played the demos and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, here. What do you want to know? Let me know. My brother plays it. Like, if if those kind of people are messaging me about a game, that's how I know it's like in a different like area. Like
Mhm.
unless it's like one of their special interests. Like my brother's into like Warhammer, so if a Warhammer, or like he's into like military history, so there's like specific like war sims or like Warhammer stuff. That's different. But was like Resi's doing incredible. It's already sold 5 million copies.
Yeah.
Like, and it's
Killing
also
it.
proof that story-driven games at that scale still work incredibly, especially if it's dedicated to a thing. That game's like 10 hours long, depending on what
Yeah,
path
it's
you're
not
trying to
long.
take.
It is not long at all.
Like,
Mhm.
you don't have to overextend yourself, which is what I think almost like Monster Hunter Wilds was a little bit, like why that got bit in the ass compared to like
Mhm.
Worlds or Rise. I think they went too hard on it,
Mhm.
and that kind of bit them a little bit, because that game fell off on sales. Still sold incredibly well. It's still like the 5th best or 6th best selling Capcom game of all time within the first
Sure.
year. But compared to Resi selling a single player game selling 5 million and going to continue to
Mhm.
sell incredibly well for the rest of its lifespan. Like Street Fighter 6 is getting like is about to get its boost because the new season's coming out with Alex as the first character for the new DLC season. All that stuff. There are ways to make any kind of game, regardless of scale, work. You just really need to know your market. I don't think there's
Mhm.
a company that knows their market better than Capcom right now,
Mhm.
just because of all the like we got Resi, we're getting Pragmata, and like we're getting the Mega Man Star Force collection, like a
Yeah.
bunch of DS games that I never thought I'd see get re-released again, getting released, which I'm pumped about that because I love those Mega Man games. But the idea that they know their market so well for so many of these different games and franchises, and they approach them differently. They're all priced differently. They're all marketed differently. They're all like Pragmata had a demo, had a demo 4 or 5 months before it came out. Resi didn't get a demo because like they know the experience of Resi is enough. Like Resident Evil is enough to draw people in to begin with, but having a demo might actually turn more people off because the experience of playing what that game is part of it, is like one of the most important parts of that game. Versus a Pragmata,
experiencing
you
it, experience it blind, because you know what the gameplay is like, you know who the characters are, you kind of have a familiarity of what the gameplay is like, but you still want to experience it the first time for the twists, the jump scares, for the solving the puzzles for the first time, and so you don't want to ruin that experience for yourself or spoil, or potentially even spoil parts of it. So so that makes sense why
you also might not feel compelled to play it the same way, or even play it. You might be like, oh yeah, I really like that, but I'm not going to pick it up at launch because I already played the first hour of the game and I don't want to replay that right away, so I might wait until it's on sale or something. So
I've seen two people play it two very drastically different ways. One was Mr. Mike Minotti at Giant Bomb, just kind of running through everything and going fast and like not like reading clues and puzzles correctly. And then I watched my friend play in Discord, and he was much more like methodical, and slow. And I was like, this is better. I can watch this.
Yeah, it's like a little bit more.
There are parts where I'm standing in my living room, and my girlfriend and I are both watching Mike play, and we're just like screaming at the TV, like that he needs to go back and check something.
Yeah, he just misses a clue entirely.
Yeah.
I mean, and we'll talk about this again. I'm sure once Highguard will be gone. By the time, not the time we record the next episode, but like
it'll be the day of.
We'll talk about this again. Maybe we'll have like a dedicated episode just talking about live service stuff. Maybe we'll bring a third person on to just have a conversation about that part of the industry. But another part of the industry we're going to get to talk about. There's two different sides to this now. But as we're getting prepped to record, Asha Sharma, the new CEO of Xbox, officially confirmed the code name and some details about the next Xbox console. This is kind of her first big move as the Xbox head. Had a big meeting with like the team Xbox, so like most of the heads of the different studios, I assume, bunch of people involved in different elements of the Xbox brand, and it is officially confirmed that the return of Xbox is like the focus of this brand, including Project Helix, which is the codename for the next generation console. God, my webcam is all kinds of freezy today. Project Helix will lead in performance and play your Xbox and PC games. Looking forward to chatting about this more with partners and studios at her first GDC next week. So we'll probably get a little bit more details. We'll also probably hear about a bunch of tech stuff next week in terms of like how people think these like different shortages are going to impact the market. Obviously, we saw the new MacBook, like the MacBook Neo, I believe is what it's called, where it's like a $500-$600 MacBook, which is crazy. It's like it's still full aluminum body. Like that's going to kill a lot of like Chromebook.
It's directly competing with the Chromebook.
Yeah,
this is exactly what they're trying to do.
Because there was a report that like the $600 to $800 range of like PCs and laptops that are like in the market now as they are just going to completely disappear. And this feels like Apple trying to use some of their extra chips from their phones to enter that market, because that is a very important market for students, especially because you can get the lower end version of that laptop for $500 if you're a student. And that is a very quality computer laptop, like our computer for students. Even without
for that price, that's really good.
Yeah, like whatever the RAM is and like the storage is, like that'll do most of what a student needs at a very high level, and operate off of Windows' garbage ecosystem that's currently right now.
Yeah, sometimes because sometimes some of my coworkers will share their screens for like meetings, and I'll see they're on Apple. I'm like, man, I miss the simplicity of like of like Apple.
Look,
sometimes.
That's what I'm on. That's what I'm using right now. My daily drive is my MacBook Pro that I got 4 years ago now. And I do all my editing on it. I do all my recording on it. I do most of my streaming on it. I do like most of my everything on it, unless I'm gaming when I use my PC. but like I'm probably going to turn my PC if I can play Marvel Rivals on Linux, which I'm pretty sure I can. I'm probably going to change my PC over to Linux at some point soon.
Okay.
I'm going to go down that rabbit hole because I don't want to be. And obviously, I'm on Windows 10 on that PC. It doesn't matter. But a big concern about this Xbox stuff. So we don't have a lot of reporting on it yet. That is like congruent with.
We
other
pretty much
things we've
have
heard.
we have a name and we have what Ash has been saying, which
So-
is it'll lead in performance, and that's kind of like a phrase that a lot of people have been looking at. That it's that means it could maybe be on the higher side.
We're going to see multiple
price, like,
SKUs. It's going to be the same thing as the Xbox ROG Ally X. So that the concern
I think-
is that this is probably going to run the Xbox launcher, that a version of the Xbox similar to how the Steam machine is going to run a version of SteamOS on Linux. This is going to run the equivalent of what the Xbox ROG Allies run and all the other handhelds that now have access to it because it's not exclusive anymore. They're going to run the Xbox Big Picture mode, whatever they end up naming that operating system, that launcher, on a version of Windows 11 most likely, that will then you can boot into the PC version of the PC and mess around with that, but also run all of your different PC infrastructure. Like you can launch your Steam games, you can have those in your library. Basically what this is going to be is it's going to be a hybrid Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows whatever PC that will have
an Xbox.
Yes, that will. It's going to be an Xbox branded PC that has specs specifically catered and a like infrastructure specifically catered to gaming. In a way, they'll probably find a way to do it better. But it's going to run a hybrid system where you can launch it into Windows most likely, or maybe they'll do some kind of hybrid operating system too, where you can load Steam, you can load Epic Game Store, you can load GOG, you can load whatever you want, and you can do that. The issue is, how's that going to perform? What's the price point? Mm-hmm. Would you rather have this or a Steam machine? Because they're going to be direct those two. If Steam ever wants to get into the like hardcore console war, because as much as people say the console war is dead, which it is in its traditional sense, because the console war right now is, are you getting a PlayStation or a Switch, essentially, because PC is encompassing the other two, if you count Steam and Xbox. So,
does Valve want to get in the console war?
No, because they don't care.
Yeah, because if you look at I just have the player charts up right now. If you look at like most what games are being played right now, there's like 1.6 million people across CS2 and Dota, just those two. And then like next highest is Arc Raiders. Like if you were to add like the next 10 games all together, like maybe they add up to like CS2 and Dota combined.
Yeah.
That's where their market is.
But if they wanted to get into it, this is their quote unquote in, because they're going to be directly competing with this as a product, regardless of what they want to do, because it's already a hybrid. Like the Steam machine is going to be a PC for your main like monitor, your main device. So they're already going to be competing with it.
We're talking to Steam machine, right?
Yeah, Steam machine is going to be directly competing with whatever this hybrid Xbox is.
It's essentially essentially the competition is between who. Essentially, the race is who can get the best device that lets you play the games on your Steam library on a bigger screen.
And Steam is Steam.
And Steam is Steam, and so a Steam device that does that naturally.
Not only naturally, also like you mentioned, and I have very much like just been on board with too. Like they're not a public company. They're not beholden to like anything that they have to focus on. Like there's so much AI garbage.
I feel like every week we reiterate that Valve can do whatever the hell they want. They have
fuck you money and don't answer to anybody but themselves. And that's something.
They're also like not trying to like squeeze the consumer out of every dollar they have, because they don't need to. Well, just so much money comes in naturally. They're like, all right.
You said there are how many of Valve's games in the top 10 already, including the top 2, and they're almost always the top 2.
They're almost always the top 2.
But like raking in crazy amounts of money. Now Dota not so much as CS:GO, but because of how it's structured.
It's kind of 1.1 at current writing. or as we're talking current writing, see instinctually because I
Close
swear.
enough. This is our
It's
article at this point, Scott.
it's 1.139 million in Counter Strike. Over
Yep.
the past 24 hours, it peaked at 1.47 million. Dota is currently at 568K. Past 24 hours, it peaked at 750K.
Yeah, the usual.
And then down at number 13, they also still have Deadlock, which again is a game that is
not even officially out yet.
No microtransactions. It's not out yet. You can't download it from the store page. I mean, yeah, if you can get in pretty easily as long as you know someone who is currently playing, you can get in pretty easily. Still, that's still at 80,000, 24 hours, over the past 24 hours, 91,000. They're fine. They
also,
doing
every other game on that list that's a paid game, 30% on a certain amount, and then a certain percent after that point, depending on how much it sells. DLC, they get a cut. Microtransactions, they get a cut, which is why we're going to talk about Sony here in a minute. But the point being, they don't care. They're getting their money anyway, but the better experience they can make across their different hardware, because they have all these different hardware brands now that they're launching on top of just Steam as a thing that doesn't need to be off of Windows, and then whatever Linux and Steam OS and whatever else you want to do. All of that just leads into them winning without having to do much, because all of this was already being worked on to begin with. Like the infrastructure was already like Steam OS was already there. So the Steam machine is just a matter of how can they most comfortably for them and reliably for them build these machines and get them out the door, because even without that, they were going to win no matter what.
Yeah, I think for Xbox, the way forward here is you have to. I think you almost have to. And we'll talk about this a lot more and talk about Sony. You do have to. I know Asha's talked a little bit or hinted a little bit about maybe doing exclusives, but I feel like you have to lean into having the better performing console, because the Steam machine is going to be very convenient. I don't exactly know how like performance wise strong it's going to be compared to like a PS5 or even a Series S or Series X, excuse me. Or like a high-end gaming PC. And so I think for Xbox, you have to be like, okay, this is the best performing machine, and it's got these games you can only play in the Xbox ecosystem. I feel like that's kind of the only way forward. And so if they end up releasing Helix, whatever ends up being called, and it's got the PC gaming capabilities on it, but it's also got a couple games that are maybe like not that you can only play on the Xbox ecosystem, whether that's a new Halo or a new what else could the Elder Scrolls. No, they couldn't do Elder Scrolls 6 a console exclusive. That'd be insane. I mean, they did Starfield exclusive, so you never know.
Yep.
But like a new Halo, a new Gears. I mean, there's already going to be a new Gears coming out, but like a different Gears. But something, if they have the quote unquote best console and something exclusive to go with it, then that's a way back for them. Otherwise, I don't really. And we're still waiting to see. We know so little about this Project Helix.
We'll hear a little bit more next week. We'll get some new reporting next week. My thought process is very similar. Like, and we'll get to Sony here in a second, where it's like, if they don't have a reason for this machine to be, if I did not get the Xbox ROG Ally X as a review unit, I would not have bought that machine, regardless of how convenient it is to be able to play all of my games across the various ecosystems. I'm not going to pay $1,000 for a machine that is harder to use and less convenient than the Steam Deck OLED that I already had and already used. Even if I like being able to have like all of my games available in one place, or have access to Game Pass if I want to pay for Game Pass for a couple months to download some of these games to play in my preferred method, which is sitting in my recliner on a handheld. But I'd rather have my Switch. I'd rather have my Switch 2. I'd rather have my Steam Deck. I'd rather have, and this is talking about the false reporting about like Windows 12 and everything, and Windows 11 being all this garbage and everything like that. The operating system that is the Xbox Big Picture Mode, the Xbox Gaming Launcher, whatever you want to call it, on these handhelds, that will most likely be what they try and optimize in a way for Helix's eventual launch. When it is working, when you are just bouncing back and forth between Xbox launcher, Steam, Epic Games, like whatever other launchers you're using within that launcher, works very well, is seamless, and it is a very quality handheld experience. The minute you have to go to Windows 11 to disable settings, to update your system, to do anything like that, it is cumbersome. It is a tunnel of hell that I don't want to deal with, even though I know how to deal with all of it because I know how to work like that stuff on a computer. But I had to go in and manually disable so much AI stuff, so many update things. I had to go uninstall this bloatware because it was still a computer at its core, even though like they said a lot of this stuff wasn't going to be there, but because I had to update it when I got out of the box, a lot of the stuff just got reinstalled, even though they didn't have it installed on the base version of the operating system that was on the system. But with Windows 11 being as bad as it is, with whatever Windows 12 is all likely to be just as bad as it is, because no one trusts Microsoft with anything at this point, especially when they're just continuing to double and double and double and double down on AI. I was like, okay, so the future here is for me, because at this point, my gaming habits and my media consumption habits pretty well. I use my PC to play video games and to do occasional like streams that I can't do on my MacBook. That's all I use my PC for. I don't feel a need to upgrade my PC because I can run Marvel Rivals just as good on it. I can run most games very well on it but I play big games on my PlayStation or my Switch, and that's it. And then I like my handheld game for most of the stuff anyways. So whenever I build a new computer, if I build a new PC at this point, I'm probably not going to build I just don't know if I'm going to build a new PC. I'll probably just because, and if I do, I'm probably going to try and do Linux on it. Because most of the games that I play, you probably can play on Linux, like getting around certain elements of it, because most of the issues with Linux gaming is like the anti-cheats and stuff, or certain elements like that. But why would I do that when we're going to be in this current console generation for what feels like another 5 years at the rate we're going? I don't feel the need to upgrade my PlayStation to a PlayStation 5 Pro. I don't know if I'm going to get a PlayStation 6 because the exclusive now, and this is going to be a good pivot into talking about Sony here, but the exclusives for that system have not sold me on that system. I only bought it because it was convenient for me to get one when they launched, because I had the opportunity to get one when they were in short supply and do it for work. I think you're muted. Or if you,
we're talking the PS5.
Yeah, we're talking PS5. So I got that.
Okay.
When it launched, I did not care about Demon Souls. I got Devil May Cry 5 because they had the special edition with the Virgil content and like the enhanced gameplay. The only exclusives I played on that system, like I'd have to go back and look. I don't know what PlayStation 5 exclusives I've actually played. Because Spider-Man 2 and Astrobot are probably the only ones I can name off the top of my head. I played more Switch 2 exclusives.
Either Tsushima or Yurte, did you play either of those?
Tsushima wasn't PlayStation 5 exclusive. It was PlayStation 4.
Right.
I played that on PlayStation 4 Pro. Haven't played Yote. I might play Saros. Like Wolverine, I'll play. I don't care about Intergalactic, like at a base level, unless they'd sell me on it. I mean,
I'm kind of sold on it, just the aesthetic and the vibes already. And
like I'm interested, but I'm not like
do more of like an action combat game as opposed to like cover based
I know
shooting and scavenging for Last of Us. Which I mean, Last of Us great story, but the gameplay was just like
not the most exciting
not the big thing for me. But I guess we should kind of like touch it because you mentioned Saros, and that's like we should touch on.
We can get into this. I've got the full article up here.
Yes.
Schreier. So a lot of this next bunch of stuff the report, the initial thing that we were just talking about from Xbox wasn't a Schreier report, but we were reading it from Schreier. It was just a Twitter post from Asha talking about Xbox stuff. So there was no actual reporting here. But this is an actual report from Jason Schreier that is Sony pulling back from PlayStation games on PC. So a lot of people are saying, oh, Sony's just completely ditching the PC ecosystem. That is not the case. This is them pulling back from it. So this is from Bloomberg, obviously with everything, links below to all the actual articles. Sony Group is no longer planning to release its big PlayStation 5 games on PC, a major shift in strategy that sees the video game maker returning to console exclusivity after 6 years of flirting with multi-platform releases, as according to multiple people familiar with the company's plans. Online games, so if this is what a lot of people aren't talking about because they're just sensationalizing this for clicks, this does not apply to all games. This is not a blanket for every game. This is going to be, again, this is going to be closer to what it was when this first started, where it's like a case-by-case basis. But multiplayer games, specifically listing here Marathon and Marvel Tokon, which is the new fighting game that is being published by Sony and then developed by Arc System Works that were released in August, will still be released across multiple platforms. Single-player titles, such as Ghost of Yotei and the upcoming Soros, will now, according to this report, be exclusive to PlayStation 5. This is like from multiple sources that are basically just being like, hey, don't tell people who we are or what we're doing. We just need to get this out there. So people cautioned that things could change in the future due to the unpredictable nature of the video game industry and that Sony's plans are constantly shifting. But in recent weeks, PlayStation scrapped plans to bring Yotei and other internally developed games to PC. This, again, internally developed, not published, internally developed. That's an important note. Yes. 2 games made by recent external developers, which is Death Stranding 2, published and developed in partnership with Sony Interactive. Kenna Scars of Cosmara, the sequel to Kenna Bridge of Spirits, which just got announced that it's going to be coming, the original game is going to be coming to Switch, are still planned for PC releases.
Yes.
Again, important distinction. So, internally developed single player
Sony
games.
Studios.
Sony
So
Interactive
God of
Studios
War,
games.
Your Insomniac games.
Yes.
The
big one for this would be Wolverine.
Most likely Intergalactic would be my guess.
Definitely Intergalactic. So there is no longer plans to have a staggered release for a lot of these games on PC because, again, the multiplayer stuff still planned to come to PC, and most of those are going to be day and date still, like Marathon is.
Yes.
A Tokon will be.
Helldivers 2 was the biggest version of the success.
Yes.
Or the most recent proper success story in terms of coming.
That stuff won't change.
It's still super popular game.
Yes. That stuff won't change. There will still be delayed releases for games developed in partnership with Sony. So the Death Strandings, the Kenna, some of these other games. So they will still release. Kenna seems like it's going to be a day and date release on PC and whatever, but there's still going to be staggered releases for these other games like a Death Stranding, Death Stranding 2. But before this, there was usually like a 1 to 2 year window where you'd be exclusive. A game would be exclusive to PlayStation if it was developed internally, and then it would then come to PC after the exclusivity window. Similar to how like theaters like work with like before, like with streaming services, like you'd be like, 4 months in theaters, it'd be on streaming 5th month, 6 months, something like that. Think something like that. That is no longer happening with the big single player releases. And so this is like spokesperson for PlayStation declined to comment, but Schreier continues here with his writing. There are likely a few reasons behind this shift. One is several recent PlayStation games have not sold well on PC. A faction within PlayStation also expressed concern that releasing their games on PC risks damaging the console's brand and will hurt sales of PlayStation 5 and its successors. For decades, Sony's tactic for selling PlayStations was to keep Temple franchises exclusive to its own console. 2020, it pivoted to begin bringing games to personal computers via Steam. Since then, the company has put most of its big franchises on PC, such as God of War and Last of Us, so on and so forth. Strategy has been muddled, confusing people, multiple different ways to approach it. Sony's kind of looking to go back to the console exclusive is basically the story here, which that's going to hurt a lot of people because a lot of people were like, I'm just going to wait to play Wolverine on PC, which is what is Sony's concerned about. Because Steam takes the Steam cut changes depending on how many copies you sell and if you have a deal with Steam, like in the back end or whatever. But the most basic model is Steam takes 30% as a publisher of the game and hosting the game on Steam. Valve takes it from hosting on Steam. Publisher gets 70%, and then it goes from there on all sales. That changes depending on how many games are sold, blah, 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 internal deals. Those are outside of our realm of knowing off the top of our heads and everything. Sony, if it sells you a PlayStation, not only get your money from the PlayStation sale, so $500 plus whatever, It also gets
Yep.
all of your money from its first party sales.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you're in its ecosystem. So you need PlayStation Plus if you want to play online for a lot of like like major live service games. So like you can play Fortnite without it, but that's like one of very few examples.
Yeah.
You need if you buy a game, they get a cut of any purchase you do in their ecosystem. So their goal up until recently and still even now, if this wasn't the case, was to get you to get a PlayStation because of, oh yeah, these games are coming to PC eventually, but if you want to play Wolverine within a 2-year time span, you need to get a PlayStation 5 because it's going to be exclusive for 2 years. Now they're just saying, hey, this wasn't working. Like some of our games weren't selling well. It's a lot of work to bring them over to PC in a way that we think is like high quality and like good. We're not going to just go back on like the multiplayer side because that still helps multiplayer games a lot to be multi-plat day and date.
Yes.
But for our internally developed games that are our IP or our teams working on it directly, they're going to be PlayStation exclusive again because that means you're more likely to buy our system to play our exclusives, which is what Nintendo always has done. What Xbox will probably do in part again. I think Xbox is going to follow something similar to this with its launcher, even though it's going to have the PC hybrid. I think it's going to be like, hey, if you want to play Halo, whatever the new Halo game is, you're going to have to come to the Xbox launcher for it. You can't play it on Steam.
Yeah.
Something like that. Not as drastic, but it's going to be similar. I think this is good for Sony. I don't like it because I can't say that because I'm a Nintendo guy. Like before if I was one of the three companies, I'd be a Nintendo guy just because that's where most of the things that I care about are. But I think this is bad for the consumer, but for Sony, this is a good play because this is definitely going to help their console sales.
Yeah,
So
that's really the biggest thing is that not necessarily the 30% off from or 30% they lose for Steam sales. I think it's really that it's what they gain and what they're not losing, which is people who are like, well, I don't even need a PlayStation if this is eventually going to come to PC anyway. You know, I'm very lucky that I have a PlayStation 5. I was very, very thankful to have one gifted for work. I used to play Astrobot, and I've had Yote on my list, and it's like, well, now if I want to play Yote, I'm gonna have to get it to PlayStation 5, and that's fine. I feel like I was gonna get it for PS5 anyway because it was made for the PS5.
yeah, the haptic.
But now,
I mean, that's another thing. Like for us, for the two of us, it's not that big of a deal because we have the systems and we'd probably buy this. Like, I am always gonna be console first, just because I like that experience. That is the experience that I prefer. It's why I like the Steam Deck so much, and why I like the ROG Ally X when it works. Is because it's an ecosystem that I can sit there and enjoy my games with just however I want to enjoy it. The PC, you kind of have to sit at my desk. I have to sit at my desk and play the game that way because that's kind of how it's designed. Because most of the games that I'm going to be playing on PC probably going to be playing with mouse and keyboard. So like you have to play it a specific way if you want to enjoy the games that I usually play on PC. With console or with these new handhelds, I can play them however I want. I can play them at my desk, sitting back. I can lean my chair back with my DualSense, or I can with my Pro controller. I can take them over to my recliner and play on my big TV for the PlayStation or the Switch, or I can hold the Switch, or I can hold my Steam Deck, or I can hold my ROG Ally X. Like I'm spoiled for choice because for the longest time I was working in the industry. I'm still part of the industry in a way that I feel like I have more knowledge to make these choices and not be limited. But for people who are working a normal 9 to 5 and are just like, I just want to play stuff on my console, it doesn't really affect them that much, except for which console they pick.
Right.
So
I wonder if we'll see perhaps maybe Xbox kind of reel back in.
That's what I said. That's what I meant when I said
Xbox games on PlayStation.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think that's going to change because I don't think they're worried about the competition in the console market anymore. I think they're worried about the PC element of it more than the console element of it, because if you're choosing a console between the two, they're already at a disadvantage after like the last decade, basically.
Yeah.
A little over a decade now of console competition. Just that if you're choosing a console, most people are either going to pick a Nintendo console or a Sony console over an Xbox at this point, just inherently based on like word of mouth, reputation, whatever. But in the PC space, I think they have room to reclaim ground by being like, oh, if it's not a multiplayer game inherently, like an Overwatch or like an MMO or something, then if you want to play it, you have to come to the Xbox launcher. Because that's not that hard of a sell. because the Xbox, like it used to be a hard sell because if you went to the Ubisoft launcher, Ubisoft Connect sucked. EA whatever sucked. All those were bad. The Xbox launcher is not intrusive. It's not terrible. It's a little weird, but like launching the Xbox launcher compared to launching Steam is not like, Steam is still better and better optimized and has a better flow, but the Xbox launcher is not bad and people aren't going to like bitch about it if that's all they have to do to launch it. And like, sure, it's like, oh, I'd rather have all my games in one place, but if the option is, oh, it's still on PC, I just have to go buy it on the Xbox launcher instead to play it. Like you still don't have to pay for online play if you buy the game in the Xbox launcher on PC. Like it's not like there's limitations there. So
yeah, I'm curious. That's a good point to just to bring it back to the Helix. If they're going to sort of maybe kind of integrate PC and Xbox more, are they even going to have the, how's that going to change the default or the basic Xbox Game Pass tier that gives you online multiplayer? Is that even going to be like a thing anymore?
Well, it's just going to be Game Pass. Like it's probably not going to change anything. It probably won't matter anymore. You'll still get like the gold games. I get like the extra games.
Right.
That collection, I guess, you'll get at the lowest tier. Like the lowest tier is still going to be the best way to get some bonuses and get access to like some games just right away. Because you'll get like
they'll probably couple the Helix with like a few months of Game Pass.
Yeah,
like,
obviously they do. I mean, they do that with the handheld. The handhelds have like 3 months of premium or whatever. So the idea, my thought process is, regardless of Sony's plan here is specifically, multiplayer stuff can go wherever it needs to go. Basically, second party developed stuff, so partnerships can go wherever they want, maybe after a little bit of a delay. But most first party stuff is now going to be insular to PlayStation ecosystem because that is the best way for them to sell consoles and market their consoles. Because right now, especially in this market, the best way for them to make return and to continue to be the top dog in the console game in like the traditional sense is to sell PlayStation 5s. Because right now the PlayStation 5 is arguably the weakest of its like last 3 consoles in terms of first party offering off the bat. And they're in a weird space right now because they're internally having to be like, okay, if they launch the PlayStation 6 right now, it would still sell really well, but how many people that bought a PlayStation 5 are going to feel burned? Because the PlayStation 5 did not offer what the PlayStation 4 offered, or what the PlayStation 3 offered even in terms of exclusives. Like, the PlayStation 5 is a good console, but like...
If the PS6 came out today, I think they would still be releasing games for PS5 for at least a couple.
What is the PS6 going to offer that the PS5 doesn't already offer, or the PS5 Pro doesn't offer?
I think that's why the PS6 it's going to be a long time until we see it, just because
people were saying like 2027 was going to be PS6 get announced. I'm like, I don't know if we're going to see it before 2030 at this point.
No, definitely not 2027. I would say closer to 2030. Maybe not all the way there, but definitely
I think like 2029 it gets revealed. Maybe it releases in 2029, depending on what the what the market looks like at that point.
Not even a guarantee. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because we're at a point now where you can optimize your games better. For like, a lot of games are still releasing on PlayStation 4. A lot of games are still releasing on Switch. Like, there are modern games that are being released on Switch and running well. Like, there's not a lot of reason for you not to be able to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna release a game on PlayStation 5, and maybe like Marathon, there's code for Marathon that might get released on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Like I saw like some stuff floating around about that. Like there's an install base there that they can still tap that for a lot of games. But like PlayStation 5 is such an under-tapped market that is still at a place right now with the market as the tech market is, where it's like you cannot, like, you release a PlayStation 6, what is it going to do better? It's going to have slightly better storage, maybe a new operating, like a new system that works, like a new OS that works better.
That's really it.
Like how are you upgrading? Like games are there's not a lot of games that are pushing the limit of what a game is right now outside of like systems. Like visuals are kind of capped. Like they're getting incrementally better, or optimization is better. Like games like a lot of games just look better now. But where's the peak of that? Like, how much more can you push that with to the point where you can't just still do it on PlayStation 5? I don't think we're at that point. So why this makes more sense to me than doing a new console. Like, sure, the new console is going to be an influx of money and an influx of like headlines and stuff, but you're also alienating a bunch of people that don't have the money to do that. So why wouldn't you just double down on, hey, we're going to strengthen our ecosystem by making exclusives. We're not going to have to plan for PC releases, so we can focus a little bit more on long-term improvement for these games for the PlayStation ecosystem. And then the Xbox side of things, the Helix could release like next year or 2 years from now, and I wouldn't be surprised just because of where Xbox is at. But I don't think that one matters as much because we already knew it was going to be a hybrid. Like that's not a new console generation. That's just a new Xbox at its core, and a new technically the Xbox.
They'll label it a new generation.
Oh, sure, it'll be called the Xbox something, and it'll be a new console generation, and they'll have a one-up on PlayStation because they can release it before the PlayStation 6. But it's not going to be in that same. It's going to almost be what the Switch is to modern consoles, like what Nintendo has been since the Wii, essentially, because the GameCube was directly competing with the Xbox and the PlayStation 2. The Wii was not competing with anything; it was its own thing. And since then, the Wii U was a little bit more in the competition for. It was trying to be a modern console, but outside of the Wii U, like Nintendo's been its own thing. The Xbox is now going to be that. Basically, the only console in what we know consoles are going to have been and were is the PlayStation ecosystem, because Nintendo's always going to Nintendo, and now Xbox is a hybrid. So now Xbox is closer to what Valve is doing. So Valve and Microsoft are over here doing these hybrids. Sony's here in the console and still doing some PC releases where it makes sense. And then Nintendo's Nintendo. So you basically have like 3 tracks now.
Yeah.
We've completely diverged from what the console wars were back in the day. They're just doing their own thing now. I think this makes the most sense for Sony because Sony is the one that benefits most from trying to do the Nintendo, where it's like we're making our system the place to go for our games.
Yes.
Again, barring
and I think they have
multiplayer.
the games to get away with
now
that.
they do.
But then they, like you said, they still have the games like a Marathon, like a Helldivers, that can still go to the multiplayer,
or the Death Strandings or the Kennas or the like that kind of stuff. Like you're still going to get that, and that's a great way to market. Like when the multiplayer game for Horizon comes out. If that comes out and people like playing it because it's going to be multiplayer and cross-platform and people like it, and that same year they announced a new Horizon game, they announced the 3rd Horizon game, great marketing for PlayStation 5.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like it's a tool for them. Just like mobile is a tool for Nintendo to use for its games when it releases like its occasional multiplayer whatever on mobile. So that's just where we're at now. Yeah. I don't know. I don't. This doesn't bug me that much, mostly because I have a PlayStation. That's where I play most of my big games.
I don't think this didn't really bug me at all. Like if I didn't have, if I didn't have a PlayStation 5, which again I got as a gift from work, I'd be a little bugged that I.
My brother is upset because he does not have a way to play Wolverine because he has an Xbox One X that he uses to play games with his buddies, and that's where he plays most of his big games. And then he has a gaming PC. So he is upset because he is not in the ecosystem where he can play a game that he's super excited about.
Yeah. But I mean, making people upset who aren't in the ecosystem, because, for every 5 people who now can't play Wolverine, if you just get one person to be like, well, now I am going to buy a PlayStation 5. I feel like that's a net positive for Sony, just in terms of cost.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if that's the exact math, but I think this
decision
is the right thing for them to do.
This decision, exactly what you're saying. This decision is a net positive for Sony in the end. It's going to make a lot of people mad. It already has. Even though a lot of people aren't reading the fine print of like what this decision actually means for a lot of the games that maybe they're more excited about, like doesn't affect a lot of multiplayer games and stuff, but it is going to affect how people view Sony in like a certain way, and yeah, but in the end, it's going to be a net positive because they're going to draw more attention to their actual consoles again than they were with this. Like this will eventually be a net positive for them, even if it doesn't like drastically shake things up.
Correct.
So who knows? Anyways, you want to talk? This isn't really an AI thing, so it's not. I just put it in the AI shame corner because this is a shameful thing because this developer is insane. Let's talk about Mind's Eye. You remember Mind's Eye, Scott?
I do remember Mind's Eye. It was a fun time when it came out, but it's still funny, but now in a different way, where it's like, oh, they made a bad game or they made a broken game, haha. And I was like, oh no, they're insane.
Yeah, so this is directly reading from Lewis Parker of Kotaku because the Build a Rocket Boy, the developers for Mind's Eye, have done another round of layoffs. And they're basically just doubling, tripling whatever down on the fact that that they were sabotaged. Their like Mind's Eye was sabotaged. The development and their release were sabotaged, and like criminal activities were happening, and they're still suing people and stuff. So this is from, like I said, Lewis Parker of Kotaku. No, you're not trapped in some sort of Groundhog Day like time loop. The date is March 4th, 2026. And the co-CEO of Mind's Eye developer Build a Rocket Boy is once again blaming organized espionage and corporate sabotage for the studio's latest wave of redundancies. The co-CEO of Build a Rocket Boy, Mark Gerard, announced that an unspecified number of employees have been made redundant on a post on LinkedIn that said, "Today we are announcing a further number of redundancies at the studio. This is a deeply painful decision. The people leaving our team have invested enormous talent, passion, and long hours into building what we believe in. Letting colleagues go is never easy." So on and so forth. However, Gerard shifted the blame for redundancies onto the criminal activities that supposedly impacted Mind's Eye's launch, which did not happen. He like criminalized reviewers, content creators, started talking about criminal activities, started suing people, sending cease and desist. Like this company is insane.
Yeah. Can I take over? Because this is hilarious.
Go right ahead.
This is directly from Mark. And if I do a bit of an Alex Jones voice, that's this natural when we get into people who start getting into like conspiracies. Over the past months, we've been working with external partners and legal advisors to investigate the criminal activity that took place around our launch. That work has taken far longer than expected, but has now resulted in overwhelming evidence of organized espionage and corporate sabotage affecting Mind's Eye. Because this matter is moving toward prosecution, we cannot share the full details publicly yet. Lewis goes on to say, this is assumedly in reference to the leaked internal meeting reported by Insider Gaming, shout out them, last month, which Gerhard reportedly stated that a, quote, bunch of gangsters at a, quote, very big American company named Ritual Network engineered a smear campaign against Mind's Eye. For context, Ritual Network is actually a relatively small PR company for TikTok YouTube creators based in Scunthorpe, England. So not a very big company, not an American company.
Hold on. I'm gonna go look up what the freaking Metacritic was for Mind's Eye. Give me a sec. Because you saying like organized espionage and stuff, like it wasn't a bad game. It was gonna get good reviews if like this espionage, quote unquote espionage, didn't happen.
Hold on. There's one last.
Do it. Go right ahead.
January 31st. Gerard also posted on the official Mind's Eye Discord. This is insane to put this on the public Discord. I don't know why he did this. That he'd be issuing the YouTuber Cypher Boy with a, quote, cease and desist roughly 18 minutes after Cyberboy released a video titled, quote, Leslie Benzies is in the Epstein files. For further context, Cyberboy was formerly involved with Ritual Network in some capacity. We'll have to wait and see how this develops when/if Build a Rocket Boy actually moves toward the prosecution stage. I assume Leslie Benzies is somehow, yes, so one of the founders of Build a Rocket Boy.
Because he was like a former Rockstar person, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, was like, because he was involved in the thing that was, Mind's Eye was supposed to be based in the like open, like the multi-world thing that was like co-published by IO Interactive that was supposed to... Hello, Maddox. Hi. Yeah, you woke up, huh? Jeez. Maddox, it's just the mailman. Chill out. Uh, but no, yeah, no, because that was a whole thing. That was what it was announced at like the Game Awards or like Summer Games Fest or Opening Night Live or something, where it was like supposed to be this like connected world that games were developed in. And you could like multiple games, and then Mind's Eye came from that.
Mhm.
Was like going to be the first one, and then IO pulled out of whatever agreement it was because they like the open. Basically, Mind's Eye became what the only thing that was going to come out of that or whatever, and
Yeah.
like it became this whole mess. I pulled up the Metacritic. There's a bunch of like smaller publications that are like 60s or 50s.
Mhm.
Most of the big publications gave it a 40, anywhere between like a 40 to a 20, and it's sitting at a 2.8 overall, 3.8,
Mm.
38 Metacritic score generally from critics, and a 2.6 from fans. This is not a good game. If you've seen gameplay of it, it's not good. There's just broken parts of it. The
Mhm.
story's nonsensical. I can't speak to the acting obviously because I haven't actually played the game, but from what I've seen of this game, like it's just a mess, and like a mess that has no real substance, even if the action is like okay. And the fact that they're continuing, like I think this is the third or fourth triple down, like publicly in a statement, whether it's
Yeah.
layoffs or just like general statements of them being like criminal activities, corporate espionage. We found the people that are doing this. This game was actually great. This game was not going to be reviewed well or spoken of well, regardless of what they're talking about. So like the fact that they're still doing this is insanity.
This feels like a studio that's gonna be fully closed by the end of this year. I can't imagine that they're between Mind's Eye being a disaster and between I can't imagine that the normal people working there. Well, here's the thing. This seems like saying it's like leadership is a bit off their kilter and they're lashing out. I assume the people who did their best to work on this game are probably just like, holy shit, I gotta get
I mean,
out.
they're already gone. They're probably already gone.
Right? Yeah, a lot of them are gone. That's fair. And Godspeed to them.
Yeah,
Don't look
hope
back.
you got paid a lot for this project, but like seriously. Um all right, we can move on from that. So this is a segment that I have called
Well,
yeah.
everyone else already moved on from Mind's Eye really quickly. I guess we can too.
Yeah. We spend more times on Mind's Eye than most people will. Uh but yeah, so this is the segment I have called Pokemon Day, additional episodes and streams. I touched on it a little bit earlier. But Pokemon Day happened last week at this point because it was on the Friday before recording this. So we're not going to talk about all the announcements or anything here. Obviously, a lot of stuff got announced, including the 10th generation of Pokemon, Winds and Waves, which looks much better than a lot of people thought. Generally, very positive responses. I went in depth with that with my buddy Lou over on a full episode. You can go watch that. It's like 4.5 hours long. You can go enjoy that one in a couple sittings or over like a workout, like multiple workouts, whatever you want to do. But I did want to touch on the fact that Pokopia is currently the highest rated Pokemon game of all time uh, on Metacritic, sitting at an 88 overall. The only other Pokemon games that come close, there's multiple that are like at an 87. So Pokemon Y specifically is also an 88, but if you average out between X and Y, it's like an 87.5. Black and White's an
Yep.
87. Heart Gold Soul Silver is an 87. Sun and Moon is also an 87, but Pokopia is an 88. Getting much better reviews than a lot of people thought. People apparently just completely did not understand that this was not going to be just a Minecraft style game or a like Animal Crossing game. Like they just done like a lot of people didn't play Dragon Quest Builders, specifically Dragon Quest Builders 2, because that is the team that is helping make this game. Is a bunch of people that worked. Dragon Quest Builders, the original, was developed internally at Square Enix. Dragon Quest Builders 2 was developed in partnership with Koei Tecmo. The Koei Tecmo team that helped make Dragon Quest Builders 2, a lot of that team is also working with Game Freak on Pokopia. So this game has a story, has progression, has like a bunch of elements that a bunch of people just didn't expect. Apparently, like people really like the story. I'm gonna be playing this. Don't know if I'm gonna be playing it. If I'm gonna double down and do like a Friday and a Saturday stream, especially since the weather's supposed to be really bad around here on Friday. But I will be streaming this a little bit. We'll see how much I actually enjoy it. But I'm much like as soon as I heard it was the DQ the DQB team doing this, I was like, oh yeah, I'm in because I like Dragon Quest Builders a lot. So that's really cool.
Yeah, this is one that my partner Steph has been very excited to come to finally get her hands on, and I believe it does come out
It's
today.
today.
So
It's out now.
So she gets home late, so maybe she'll just wait until tomorrow to pick it up. But or she'll play a little bit tonight. Yeah, she's really excited. I mean, I it looks really fun. I want to watch a little bit and just check it out for myself. And for our what's it called, for our fantasy, this is a great pickup for Connor,
Yeah,
who got
Connor
this with
Connor
the second
got.
overall pick.
I don't know if Connor was paying attention at all to this game, or he was just like, "Give me the Pokemon game that's coming out
Yeah,
this
he
year."
did. But a nice 18-point swing for him. Not as good as Resident Evil Requiem, which is a 20-point swing as a 90.
Yep.
But I think for a second overall pick, I mean, obviously it's the best scoring Pokemon game ever. So I would say he's probably pretty happy with that. And I assume Pokemon's pretty happy with this too. And it makes people happy and everyone loves it.
Yeah,
So
I hope this
good news all
emboldens.
around. Happiness all around.
I hope this emboldens more teams to do this kind of partnership because we're seeing more of this. We're seeing this with Konami, with Castlevania. The new Castlevania game is developed in part by probably some Konami oversight, but the teams that made Dead Cells, who did the Castlevania DLC for Dead Cells, are now making a Castlevania game, fully just not straight up a Castlevania game. Like I hope more companies are like, hey, we want to do this like thing in our IP, but it's not necessarily directly our IP. What team can we partner with that we could like provide assistance
Mhm.
to and oversight about like the IP and like general stuff, like quality assurance and everything, but they make the game. Cuz I really hope we get more Pokemon games in this style now, where it's like, hey, Game Freak is busy like trying to do what Game Freak likes to do, which is revolutionize Pokemon, like do new stuff in Pokemon. Not necessarily remakes, not necessarily whatever else, but they want to make new stuff in Pokemon. So why don't we use some of the leadership at Game Freak and a few people that are experienced in Pokemon to then lead a team to make a spin-off game or even a remake, because Ilka's remake of Diamond and Pearl was not a good remake just because of a bunch of different things. But if this is anything that's a sign, I really hope we get more attempts in more something like this.
If you want to talk a little bit more about it or what your Pokemon streaming plans are, I will let my dog out
Do it.
and
Go
I'll be
right
right
ahead.
back.
Yeah. So I don't know. This is very exciting for Pokemon people, just because like obviously good game, good games are good. So with the idea that we could get more of this, awesome. I'm excited to see like what they've got some events planned, like some post-launch like live events, limited time events, similar to like Animal Crossing probably. So we'll see how those go. We'll see like if there's DLC for this or additional content for this game. Really excited to see that. I am interested to see where Pokemon goes after this fact, because obviously with Wind and Waves not coming out until 2027, there's still a gap for Pokemon. I don't think we're getting more ZA DLC other than like Mega Stones. I think we got the announcement for the Garchomp Z Mega Stone event. And I think that's the last new one. I'd have to look, like the last new unreleased one. So if that's the case, then that's kind of done. I don't know if we're gonna get another they didn't announce another game for this year other than Champions, which is now coming out next month in April, not accounting the release for phone. So there's not a Pokemon game coming out later this year. That leaves a gap, and I don't know if there's going to be another. They haven't really done a lot of spin-offs that weren't like mobile-ish. So like Unite, TCG Pocket, uh, like the last couple spin-off games were the remake of Mystery Dungeon, the remake or the new Pokemon Snap, and Pokopia, like dating back to like 2020ish. So they haven't really done a lot of Pokemon spin-offs. So I wonder if they have like more in the bank for that, while there's like these gaps between big releases. Like we'll get Winds and Waves, and then we'll get the DLC for Winds and Waves in 2 parts probably again. So that'll cover a year and a half, 2 years of content for Pokemon, not counting whatever else they do for all their other live service games. So we'll see. But Pokopia is dope. Streaming plans, if anybody cares about that, like I said, time of recording this, we're going through Pokemon Blue, then we'll go through Pokemon Gold, then we'll go through Pokemon Sapphire, doing games that I did not play when I was a kid, as in like the ones that I didn't play the most are the physical copies that I had when I was younger, trying to give some love to the ones that I didn't exactly play, so I can use the exclusives in those games because I didn't use them as much, or so on and so forth with that. Then we'll go back and we'll do Yellow, Crystal, Emerald, so I'm not just like back-to-backing Kanto, back-to-backing Johto, so I don't get burned out. This is a long-term project, so streaming 3 times a week, probably 2 times a week minimum will be whatever Pokemon game I'm doing, and then we'll do like a Pokopia or whatever. And I might throw in some extras, just like I said with Scott. Might throw in extra Pokopia stream that here and there, extra multiplayer stream here or there if I'm feeling like I want to stream more than the normal 3 times a week. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday is kind of my plan. 8 p.m. CT-ish. Links to the Twitch are below. Might end up doing also YouTube streams. Don't know if I'll multi-stream to the Timesphere channel or to my personal Twitch or my personal YouTube where I upload like VODs or have like some old videos there. But that's kind of it. So, I see Scott's back. Hello, Scott. You got back right in time for my rambling to be done.
Perfect timing, and it's great because Kira actually didn't have to go potty because she just does that. She'll come in, act like she has to, and then gets out there and just stands there.
Yeah, attention. That's what he does sometimes too.
Yep.
So, well, now we get to talk about more Sony stuff.
Right. Oh yeah, this got people mad.
Yeah. Okay. I had a whole conversation about this with again another group of people that are like pretty attuned to the industry and also are very big Souls people. But I want to make this clear. I guess we'll read this first. So this is another report from Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg. Sony's Bluepoint pitched Bloodborne remake before closure. So this was like, the timeline goes like this. Last week, Sony announced the closure of Bluepoint Games, Austin-based subsidiary behind, I didn't know they were Austin-based. That's interesting. Behind acclaimed remakes like Demon's Souls and Shadow of the Colossus. Around 70 people will lose their jobs, although Sony is also giving them opportunities to apply for positions at other studios within SIE. The decision came just 5 years after Sony purchased Bluepoint in 2021. That was basically like vast expertise in world building, character creation will be a huge plus for Sony's studios properties. Then they did not release a single game while under Sony. They did help on God of War Ragnarok. But they basically, following the purchase, Bluepoint continued its work helping Sony Santa Monica with the development of God of War Ragnarok. After that, the newly acquired PlayStation studio had ambitions to make its own game, which is what was reported for years, that they were working on original IP and pitching original IP rather than co-developing or remaking other games from other companies. At the time, Sony was all in on live service games designed for continual monetization after launch. One of those games would be Bluepoint's first original title under PlayStation, which is the now canceled God of War live service game. Hope to be basically like sequel and spin-off bait for whatever it was going to end up being. Schreier specifically notes it was supposed to be its own smaller version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which awesome, great. That's a great base for that. Bluepoint began working on the game in which the character Atreus would fall into Hades, according to people familiar with the project. A loose idea was for players to control different versions or aspects of Atreus as they battled through the Greek hell. To have some sort of cooperative gameplay and ongoing support, although much of the game's design was in flux. Awkward fit for the studio, which hadn't developed an original game since 2006, never developed a live service game. Bluepoint was a small team, mostly had expertise in art and engineering, not design. Developing a game that hooks players to the long haul is a challenge, even for the most experienced studios, so on and so forth with that. Even with the help of Sony Santa Monica, Bluepoint struggled to make much progress and spent several years floundering. In January 25, Sony canceled it. And then they broke the news and everything like that. And Sony was closely working with Bluepoint to determine what the next project was. So throughout the last year, essentially, before the closure, Bluepoint was working on what to pitch, like working on pitches, working on with Sony and other studios to find out what was next. There was the idea for Bloodborne, the FromSoft developed Sony-owned IP, to be brought back, the 2025 IP to get a refresh. Early 2025, when Bluepoint again pitched the idea of a Bloodborne remake, the studio was told that the numbers made sense, but FromSoft didn't want it to happen, according to people familiar with the process. This is something that former PlayStation executive Shuhei Yoshida shared with this was an interview with Kind of Funny last year. Was like, basically, Miyazaki was interested in remaking the classic game, but was too busy to do it himself and doesn't want anyone else to touch it. The current rumor is that they didn't really like how Bluepoint handled Demon's Souls to an extent. So there's
Even though you wasn't that like a super well critically acclaimed
yes, it was.
remake?
Yeah, it was got like
Hmm.
high 80s, like low 90 review
Yeah.
scores and stuff. It's not like the game was bad.
This
Just
I
like
mean,
FromSoft didn't like it.
when I heard and read this in the first time, I mean, maybe they thought that. To me, this whole story comes across more as Sony doesn't want anything to happen with their From Software relationship. So FromSoft says they don't want anyone else touching it,
That's
then no one else is
that's what
touching
I'm
it.
trying to get across to people when I talk about this. Because when I say that,
Yeah,
they're like,
this
"Oh,
is
well, the relationship with Sony and FromSoft is good. It's just Miyazaki making the decisions." And I'm like, I'm not saying that the relationship is bad. I'm saying the creative decisions are in flux. Because if they, regardless of what they think of, like whatever else, so Demon Souls and FromSoft and Bloodborne are owned by Sony. They're Sony owned IPs, from what I understand. They were developed by From Software in partnership, and Sony respects Miyazaki and From Software so much. Also, I'm pretty sure Sony owns some portion of either Sony or it might have been Bandai Namco actually that bought part of Katakawa, which owns FromSoft. Uh, but the idea here is they respect Miyazaki and From Software so much that without their explicit permission to remake the game or like some kind of hands-on, they are just not going to say yes. And that ended up being the nail in the coffin. Whether the stuff about Miyazaki not liking or the team not liking how Demon Souls was handled from like an art direction perspective or something, I don't know. I'm not a From Software guy. I don't know the history there. I don't know. I haven't gone and read all the interviews or read those kind of reports since they happened, so I'm not 100% sure on that. The idea here is Bloodborne remake got pitched. Sony said numbers make sense, fans want it, would do really well. But because Miyazaki is too busy, or whatever Miyazaki said in response, or his team said in response, Sony was like, we don't think we want to do this because of that relationship and how this
yeah.
project would potentially impact that if we did not get the full go ahead, even though
It's
they
really
have the full
sad.
rights to the game.
Yes, yeah, that's the thing. That's what I want to point out. It's still a Sony decision. They're still making this decision, but like I kind of get where they're coming from because it is from software, and if you have, they are. You mean just look at just look at their catalog, and just in terms of critical commercial successes. Just to wrap up, also like what the Bluepoint story from Schreier. Studio spent some time after this. They had to whip something up. They pitched an updated version of Shadow of the Colossus, but Sony turned it down. They pitched other PlayStation studios on developing new projects
Including
and
the
other
Ghost of
franchises,
Tsushima spinoff,
such
yeah.
such as a spinoff in Ghost of Tsushima. Nothing was greenlit. They essentially, it seems like Blueprint realized the writing was on the wall when the original God of War trilogy remake was announced, and Bluepoint didn't really have anything
It
to
was a
do with
week
it. They're
late,
like,
yeah,
well,
basically like a week between that announcement and Bluepoint getting canned.
yeah, it's like they're like, well, if we're the remake experts and we're not involved with this remake, that can't be good for us. And sure enough, it wasn't. And a
Yeah,
week
Demon Souls
later,
had a 92
Bluepoint was shut
on
down.
Metacritic.
Yeah, 92 sold 1.4 million copies in its first year, helping move Sony's new console. So I mean, it I feel terrible for them. They did a good job. They did everything that was asked of them. They exceeded expectations. I mean, we've experiences like this in jobs and in games media and even just and other people, outside of games media. People can relate to this kind of thing. It's like you do a good job and it's like, well, because of things outside of your circumstances, you did what was asked. It doesn't, you don't get what
That's
you
like
deserve. And
Dot. It's like
that's
it's
unfortunate.
exactly what happened with Dot. Like when we got brought on full time at Dot, we were known for our competitive coverage and then like our specific coverage of general stuff, like business stuff. We would cover general game stuff related to competitive stuff or adjacent to it, or just like big games we would cover to an extent. But over the course of the next 2 years, because of decisions outside of our control, we got completely pivoted from a competitive outlet to a general games outlet. That put us behind the eight ball in a lot of ways because we were not a general games outlet, even though we were a big enough outlet to still rival a bunch of general games outlets.
We went from competing against other esports sites, which I think we were pretty well comfortably doing
Yes,
well up against, to now competing against other general gaming sites that have been
including our own.
that are, yeah, including ones within our own network, ones that have been around for a long time that have better name recognitions, that have better resources and a better what's it called, like systems in place for handling
Not even just
guides
systems,
and
also people that were hired to
reviews.
cover those games.
Yeah,
Like
and
we
it's
could
like
do
and just
guides, we could do
yeah,
reviews, but like because we're
sure.
journalists, like we can do what we need to do. But I didn't join the industry to do game guides and game reviews.
Yeah. And then, just the uphill battle of it's like if people click on our website and they're like, "Oh, esports." Oh,
We were
did they really
that was such a
did they
such put us such behind the eight ball and so much stuff.
yeah, and then people were like, "Oh, what if we thought maybe we just rename it to Dot and we just get rid of the esports thing?" It's like just Dot, like that's what how's that gonna
Well,
do?
they pitched dot gaming. Remember that? Remember like
Oh God, they did.
remember remember
Oh, no,
remember
they did.
what was it, 2020, end of 2023? No, it was
Oh,
end of 2022 maybe, when I know Rachel had Rachel had to do the slides, but I don't remember who did the slides where it was like we're doing a three-pronged whatchamacallit, and it's like we've got dot gaming and then dot esports and then dot, I don't even remember what the other one was, but
Dot
like
culture, dot
guide
streaming.
something, I don't know, but it was like we're doing a three-pronged thing and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do it, like all these are gonna be expert areas because we hired people for each of these roles and we did this and we did that. And I'm like, I don't get emails about anything for these other things. I get emails about general game coverage, I get emails about esports stuff, and you clearly do not care about esports stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I like how they're like, "Oh, three-pronged." It's like, you clearly don't give a shit about one of these prongs. You care about the other two.
we got no support for esports stuff by the end of like our time
No.
there. We got like told to keep doing it and then yelled at for doing it. Like I got in so
Yeah.
much trouble. I
Why
don't
are you
know.
writing about this Valorant tournament? Because I'm the fucking Valorant lead, and this is a big tournament. What are you talking about?
Yo, like no joke. I don't know how many times I got pulled into a conversation and got yelled at because I was like writing about things that they did. Oh, hey, look, while we're recording, another Sword Art Online game got announced, I think.
Oh, goody.
Is this an MMO? Okay, whatever. I'll look at that later. That's something we can talk about next week. Whatever. Knowing my luck, I'll probably get someone's gonna. I have people that watch my streams, by the way, that are already threatening me to buy games that I have to play on stream. Like threatening me to gift me games that they're like, you have to play this on stream. So your goal of me being tortured for trying to do content is already working, Scott. I'll get money, but I'm going to be tortured.
Listen, if we talk about Sword Art in the next episode, you're gonna see my eyes glaze over. And I'm just gonna.
Oh no,
I'm just
we talk about like game tie-ins or something. I'm not going to make you talk about anime. Don't worry about it. Look, I could talk about how I ended up downloading Honkai Star Rail again because I had a bunch of free stuff, because subscribing to PlayStation Plus will just occasionally get you like free stuff and like Marvel Rivals or like some live service stuff.
Mhm.
So I had a bunch of Honkai stuff, and I forgot there was a Fate Stay Night like banner in Honkai. They put a couple characters from Fate in there, and I like Fate. So I was like, oh, I'll go use my stuff. So I downloaded Honkai, and I was like, I don't know how any of this works because I only played like a couple hours of Honkai for work once. So I don't know how any of this works. So I had to find out how to get to the banners to pull these banners. Didn't pull what I wanted. I'm like, am I gonna play Honkai to get these characters? Probably not. But that's the whole thing. I don't know. The point being here, also, I wanted to point out this last line here. There's still people calling about potentially saving Bluepoint, like companies making phone calls to see if there are ways to salvage the studio.
Yeah.
Doubt that's going to happen at this point. We're already what, 3 weeks out almost.
Mm-hmm. Well, how long was it before? How long did? Oh, I'm blanking the name. The people who made
the Japanese studio. I know what you're talking about.
They made Hi-Fi
Rush and the horror game. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm completely
Craft and Bottom. That's a different scenario though. Like they bought the IPs too.
Yes.
Like,
and that's what the problem with Bluepoint is. They don't really have IPs because they've been working on other stuff. Tango Gameworks. That's
Tango Gameworks. But does that really matter for if you're getting Bluepoint for what you want Bluepoint for? Like, the Bluepoint was never we're developing our own game studio. They were almost always a remake slash like a remake slash support studio. So if you buy them, you're buying them to be a remake / support studio.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what you're doing. That's like a bunch of, so people don't know this because they don't keep up with it. I mean, a lot of people do because they want to sensationalize it, but Nintendo's bought quite a few studios in the last several years, but almost all of those studios have been like support studios or like port studios, because they can help people, like they can assign those studios to help with big ports for third parties, or they can port older games, or they can help support on games. Like they're finalizing a deal to purchase like Bandai Namco Southeast Asia that worked on, they were like a support studio on a bunch of different Nintendo games on top of like working on a bunch of Bandai games. So it'll become Nintendo of Singapore or something. And it's just going to continue being a support studio / working on smaller games. Like there's credit
happens,
to doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course. And like they're, Bluepoint are considered like
top
arguably
class
the best at what they do. So
it'd be a shame to see it just dissolve.
Yeah, because if someone is in the market for that, then great. But it just, you don't.
You think a lot of people would be in the market for that, considering what we're seeing with the current trends.
Yeah, honestly, fucking Xbox. You need some positive press right now.
Save Bluepoint and then remake your old games because your new games are coming out.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Look,
yeah, I mean that would people be like, sweet. We're bringing back the Perfect Dark remake. We're putting Bluepoint in charge of it.
Sure. Yeah. Look, to tie it up
who says no? It's the Bill Simmons. Who says no?
Yeah, who says no on this deal? That should be a segment. We should do a segment.
Who says no on this deal? We just match studios with
IP swapping.
Games.
Like we should do a game, because we haven't done a game in a while. Do like a who says no segment where we each bring like a who says no, like Microsoft sends Nintendo Banjo-Kazooie IP, Nintendo sends what does Nintendo send Microsoft in that deal?
What would Microsoft want from Nintendo?
A lot.
That Microsoft could. Well, what could they recently ask for? Like, because if they're like, give us Pokemon, Nintendo's hanging up the phone.
Nintendo's hanging up the phone on basically like any of its first IP. Banjo-Kazooie is such a like distressed asset. Like is Banjo-Kazooie the Jonathan Kaminga of Microsoft's portfolio?
Well, it's a Jonathan Kaminga in that if they send it, here's the thing: it's a Jonathan Kaminga in the sense that if they send it to Nintendo is gonna like make the most of it, and it's gonna be great, and Microsoft gonna go, oh fuck, we could have. They're gonna be the Warriors
because Microsoft has essentially been Steve Kerr, where it's just like, hey, Banjo-Kazooie, we know you're there, and like every time we bring you out, like we get good press and like some good stuff, but like we're not gonna.
Banjo's telling his agent that he wants a trade, and his agent's going on like leaking to Woe or to Shams that Banjo wants.
Leaking to Wario 64 or Jason Schreier.
Schreier bomb. Banjo-Kazooie wants out of
Xbox. Rare concern for future.
Yeah, but like, it's like who says no? Like well, I mean, I just want to see this. I mean, the reason I talk about make Bluepoint do or have Bluepoint get picked up by Xbox and do Perfect Dark. I just want these teams that like clearly can do really good stuff, who have gotten shafted by stuff out of their control, to like just be able to work and do good work. Monolith, great example. It's like have Monolith do like I don't know. Have Monolith do a Game of Thrones game. Who says no?
Well, Monolith, because they're dead.
Yeah, and also Warner Brothers owns both assets, so that one doesn't really.
Yeah, also Warner Brothers is gonna be dead soon, anyways. So.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know, man. It sucks. To tie it back to our conversation about dot stuff, like it's just you see the writing on the wall for a lot of this stuff. Like we saw for years. Like we had conversations for years of like, we're not going to be writing about esports in a year or two, or we're going to be struggling to write about esports in a year or two because we're degrading the product. And sure enough, like I went to events and people be like, yo, we're really happy that like you have a competitive element to your outlet. And it's like, cool. I wish you would tell that to our bosses, because like that's what we would bring to the table in these conversations. Like I didn't mind doing the general stuff at a certain point, but if you're just offering the general element of it, then what is different than like, why are people coming to us at Dot Esports versus an IGN or a Kotaku or whatever? Like there's not or our own outlet having Prima
Yeah.
Games and Destructoid.
When I went to Los Angeles for Champions, John Needham, like the president of Riot, didn't tell me that he read Esports every day because of like our New World guides. He read it because of our coverage for League and Valorant, because those are two of the biggest esports in the world. And it's like, that's why, and that's almost like having a strong audience is important, but also like if people who are like really high up in the industry are going to you for news, that speaks volumes to the quality of the work.
It's also
So
like
yeah,
growing within your means is just not a thing that like C-suites understand. Like these companies
correct.
are like Sony always chasing Microsoft, like all these companies always chasing that green line up without fail. Like Nintendo's chasing the green line, but they do it with almost within their means because they're growing rapidly outside of games. Like less so, like the games element is still pretty contained with what they're doing to an extent. But like for a website, like understanding that like, oh, we're an esports publication, like we're a competitive publication, we can have like 3 editors and 8 staff writers, and we can cover esports mainly, competitive stuff mainly, and also supplement that with general games coverage for things where it makes sense for us, and we can sustain on that. And then the dedicating to a, hey, do you want newsletters? Do you want more general, like, do you want actual reporting? Hey, would you support us with a paid
video
membership? Would you like to hear video? Would you like to hear podcast?
We had a premium thing.
We did.
We never ever advertised it.
Do you want to know what happened to it?
What happened to it?
Nothing. They just disabled it. They legitimately, it was like, it's probably still hard programmed somewhere on the website. They just turned it off.
Yeah, it was like what, $1 for a month. You wouldn't get ads. They probably were like, it's not worth it. We want the ad money.
Yeah, but like they every time they pivoted to an idea, the idea lasted 5 months max.
Yeah, if that. Yeah, exactly.
And it feels like that's where we're at with the games industry right now when it comes to just strategic, not development. Like development, you can't do that, but strategy feels like it's a 5-month window, and if the 5-month window doesn't work out, then it pivots rapidly, and who knows, like you're fucked if you just get caught in the wrong turn when like your game's coming out. So who knows? That shit sucks. I do want to talk about something that doesn't suck though. It's still a little iffy. But Google and Epic did agree to a tentative agreement to finally end their dispute on like Epic's like fight against the Google Play Store and its exclusivity, and like its cut essentially. So Google standard is, and this is from Sophie I assume it's McAvoy at gamesindustry.biz. Google has settled its long-standing dispute with Epic Games by updating its Play Store ecosystem, which includes reducing commission rates on in-app purchases to 20%, down from 30%, which is like the industry standard, essentially. In a blog post shared by Samir Samat, president of Google's Android ecosystem, the firm outlined a new business model that decouples fees for using its billing system and introduces new lower service fees. Basically what this means is like microtransactions are gonna, like they're getting less of a cut from microtransactions. There's going to be more, there's going to be like a bunch of new stuff implemented. Like app experience programs are essentially going to be changing how service fees work. There's potential for like side loading, like from different stores, potential for like how things, basically this is just a great way that it looks like the Android ecosystem is going to become more open and more competitive to where the Google Play Store is not going to be a monopoly. And that's actually a good thing for Google too, because Google's getting real close to getting looked at as a monopoly for a lot of reasons, for good reasons.
This'll slow the fire for that.
Yeah, because there was like talks of them even having to divest, like, because they're never giving up YouTube. So it would be like they're gonna have to divest like some of their Android elements or like Chrome, and they don't want to give up any of that. So this is definitely a way to like stem the bleeding a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like defending the big company, but it's almost kind of unfair. It's like they made YouTube, and it's just like one of its kind.
They didn't make
like,
YouTube; they bought YouTube.
Really... Oh, that's right. What am I saying?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, never mind. Forget what I was gonna say.
Look, it's a slippery slope because a lot of companies. There are some companies that do legitimately like make their stuff, and then It's like that. It's almost like another basketball analogy for like the NBA, where it's like there are teams that like the Thunder are going to get punished for being as like good as they are as like draft like for drafting and like collecting assets,
Mm-hmm.
because eventually they're going to have to get rid of a lot of their assets that they can't see full return on because they can't afford to pay everybody, because there's no way to reward people that just draft really
Sure.
well in like a way that
But
like
also, but
circumvents the
also
salary
like,
cap.
but also Presti like voting for changes that would make it so other teams can't essentially do what he did and stockpile
Yeah, I'm
assets.
not saying they're in the right,
Yeah,
because it's all, guess what, still $1 billion industry. But the idea of
sure.
like not being rewarded for doing the work, it's a similar thing at like some tech companies. But like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of big tech companies are just like, oh yeah, they're a conglomeration of things that have been purchased over the course of like 20 years, and now they're just so big that they can't fail.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
speaking of another thing, because of like all the TikTok and like crackdown on like Chinese media, because obviously Chinese media is the issue, because they are the ones that are doing all the evil stuff with your data, not the American companies. The American companies can be definitely trusted with your data. So Trump and his administration are looking at Tencent now. They have been for a while, looking at like the gaming element of Tencent, because they already cracked down on what was the company that owned, was it Nexon, or who owned TikTok? I forget who owned TikTok.
Something bite,
Dance ByteDance. ByteDance.
ByteDance. Yeah, that sounds right.
So they're basically looking at Tencent's gaming division now. They're doing some investigations into
Yeah.
various parts of Tencent, like some developers. I think Supercell is cooperating with the investigation right now into their portion of it. But this is from the FT, written up over by Andy Robinson at VGC, because that FT article is paywalled. Obviously, link below as always. Basically, having a meeting, talking the U.S. Like this part of the U.S. government is basically talking about if they need to intercede into like Tencent's investment into U.S. gaming firms as a security risk, which we all know that's bullshit, because the security risk is not the. It's all just them not wanting Chinese involvement in American companies and whatnot, even though
Yeah.
the real risk is, oh, they get the data, we don't get the data, as shown by the TikTok algorithm and all the BS that's been happening since TikTok has been divested. Tencent, the world's largest gaming company, is invested in more than 800 developers worldwide. That includes stakes in Epic Games, Larian, Krafton, as well as shares in Ubisoft and many others. It also owns Riot Games and Supercell. Outright owns at least portions or majority of Riot Games and Supercell. According to the FT, cabinet officials plan to discuss the matter this week, but postpone the meeting due to scheduling issues. President Donald Trump is due to meet his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, next month. According to one source, last summer, Tencent was even negotiating measures with the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. to mitigate Washington's security concerns. If it decided to take action, the U.S. government could force Tencent to divest its stakes in U.S. gaming. This could be an issue for a lot of reasons, especially since if they divest, who's buying it up? Could it be some of these companies that are owned by Donald Trump's buddies who have vested interest in gaming and media, potentially looking to get more involved in the major elements of gaming media that they don't have access to right now, to potentially push more propaganda?
Cale, are you implying that Donald Trump would make policy decisions that would personally benefit him or his family? That's quite the accusation.
At this point, if you told me that I couldn't badmouth this man and his people to his face and facing like legitimate jail time or like repercussions of some kind to
Mhm.
myself, I would say fuck off, and I'd do it anyways. Because like,
Give it a year. Bad mouthing it, even just bad mouthing him on this podcast may lead to jail time at the rate we've been going in this fucking country.
look, we're in a war, an illegal war, where the Secretary of War and his tiny hands and everything
Mhm.
is basically like the Geneva Convention's suggestion. We're not bound by stupid, silly uh, measures of rules of engagement. And he said that live in a press conference, and now they're trying to cover it up. And it's like, we hear you. Like,
Mhm.
your press people can say, "Oh, this isn't actually a war; it's just a conflict." And it's like
Mhm.
your guys are going on camera talking about how it's a war.
It's so soy to rename the Department of Defense to the Department of War and then have all the little press people go, Oh, no, it's not actually a war. It's like, okay, if you're gonna be a fucking
You mean
megalomaniac, like,
you mean the president of
insane.
peace, the peace president, the guy who put like
Mhm.
however many billions of dollars dedicated from U.S. Taxpayers to this board of peace that has a bunch of people that don't have any interest in peace whatsoever, uh, and all this other bullshit
Well, he
is
did receive the FIFA Peace Prize, so I trust
yes,
someone
FIFA,
who's
yes,
received such a
such a
distinguished.
distinguished award. I mean, look,
Yes, of course.
we are sitting at a point where a school of like an all girls school or like an elementary school was bombed. How many people died? We have that.
Mhm.
We have the footage. We have the details, and they are outright denying any like multiple sources, multiple reports, and they're outright denying to even say no, we didn't do that. Like they're just trying to cover their own asses because they know if they just say stupid shit enough that the
Mhm.
idiots that the loud idiots that support them will drown out and eventually
Mhm.
draw the narrative away because some other stupid shit's going to happen because every day there's new stupid shit happening to draw attention away.
Yep. And it's by design. Completely on purpose to just continually. There's a term for it that's escaping me, but it's on purpose.
Obfuscation,
Um,
obfuscation, something like that.
it's like I can't. Yeah,
It's
I
just
looked it
it's a
up one
smoke
time.
screen. It's just a smoke screen.
Yeah, it's but explicitly the act of doing a bunch of controversial
Yeah, to drown out
headline grabbing
the axe.
stuff so quickly that you don't have time to respond, and then so just kind of either like one of you distracts you from stuff that they're really hiding, or it just is meant to like discourage people and get them in such a weird mental fog because trying to keep up with all of it would become genuinely bad for their mental health.
Oh, it is. It's
It's
terrible
all by
for all of our
design.
mental health.
Everything they do is everything like, some people foolishly go, "Oh," and I foolishly thought this during his first term. It's like, "Oh, he's just an idiot. He's just an idiot. He's just going to be a loud, dumb idiot." No, they're not idiots, unfortunately. They're very calculated in what they're doing.
He's an
But
idiot. The people around him aren't
he's
idiots.
yeah, okay, yeah, let me be fair. He's an idiot. He knows how to play his fan base. That's the one thing he's good at, and he's really good at it. Although I would say that's a low bar because his fan base are
It's really
fucking
funny
stupid.
that I would argue that him and all the people he puts in charge of his various positions are idiots, and everybody around them are the ones that are actually the masterminds trying to just
Mhm.
destabilize literally everything. It's uh, it's just so. I mean, hey, now Noam's out as the the head of the DHS, and guess who's getting put in?
Not much better. The
Wel-
crazy
welcome to
MMA
my world,
loving.
buddy.
Yeah, you're well familiar. You're well versed in
I get I
this
get emails from
bootlicking
him
loser.
all the time, and
Oh,
all
I
of them are unhinged, just misinformation machines,
Yep.
talking points,
Every
lies,
dog shit opinion you can imagine comes from
and
two names McGee over here. I don't even
he's a
remember his fucking
peacock.
name.
It's
He's
Mark Wayne Mullen.
Mark Wayne
He's
Mullen.
an
Yeah.
idiot. He's a peacock. He
Hmm.
he puffs himself up. He tried to
He
fight.
threatened to.
Yeah, he tried to fight someone in
I was
a
gonna. He tried to fight the head of the Teamsters union during a Senate committee
yes.
hearing, which like Bernie Sanders had to like scream at him to sit down
He's
and
like, sit
shut
down.
up.
You're a
Um,
U.S. senator. You're like,
but somehow, but also I also read that through Trump, apparently he like mended the relationship and now they're friends. And it's like, sure, whatever.
oh,
Like,
nothing
and
matters
apparently
anymore.
that, and that's why like the big reason why the Teamsters union guy doesn't like that didn't support the Democrat candidate last election, even though they always do. So it's like
Look,
great.
I sit here every time something like this happens, and I'm like, I'm gonna do my part, but my part is not enough, and I don't get paid or I don't have the mental wherewithal to pay attention to all this anymore. Because
Mhm.
the more I sit here and pay attention to it, the less energy I have to talk to you about games, to apply to jobs, to maybe survive long enough to
Mhm.
see a happy ending. Because
The these regimes eventually do come down. There are more of us than there are of them. They are going to lose. We're going to win. And even when they're out, that doesn't mean they're going to run away free. We're going to hold their fucking feet to the fire. We're going to drag them all in front of hearings. We're going to put them all in jail. It's going to happen. I have to believe that because otherwise I will fall into a pit of despair. but it also historically, history does repeat itself, and that's sadly why this group of morons and fascist losers are in charge. But also, history says that eventually these people do get their comeuppance, and of course, sadly, there also will be people who will act like they were always against it. But thankfully, we're in an era now where we have the internet, and we can
All the
easily
proof.
pull up and say, "Oh, really? Here's you explicitly
You mean like all these
being
people
all
saying a year and a half ago, hey, we're not going to war.
Yeah.
No war. Also, just I don't. I'm not gonna.
We've already had 2 wars?
I'm not getting into. No, he's ended 9. Scott,
9 wars.
peace president,
Wow.
president of peace.
President of
According to
peace.
FIFA certified peace president.
Yes.
As if there wasn't a report the other day that friggin' across like all of, like the United Emirates and Saudi Arabia, there's a combined like almost over like multiple million like legally enslaved people forced into like labor. And guess what FIFA's getting a lot of money from? That's another thing we could talk about. I'm not doing it today because I don't have the wherewithal for that.
I don't think I should talk about that.
Well, you shouldn't, but also like the Evo stuff. Like all the Evo stuff that happened.
I figured I'll let you. I'll let you.
I don't even know if I'm going to talk. What's the point of me talking about it at this point? Everybody knows my stance. Like maybe I'll get Will or someone on to talk about it if it gets even worse. But like
you and Will would have a great.
It's just like the full scope of like someone getting like a company getting bought out, and like 2 weeks later then basically announcing, oh yeah, we're supporting locals, but also we're just putting an Evo every month. And it's like, that's not supporting locals. That's trying to get the Evo brand out there, and it's whitewashing, it's sports washing. Like that's just what it is. Anyways, games are good when they're not funded by Saudi Arabia.
Listen, right now, I'll say this, right now, more than anything, there are probably more good games now, perhaps, than there have ever been.
There's more games coming out now than ever. There's more opportunity to play games than ever. There's more ways to play games than ever. There's more affordable ways to play games than ever, regardless of circumstances. And there's more there's more options. So like if you don't like a game that's coming out, and like if you don't like games that are coming out, there's ways to play old games, and you should like look into old games. Or you should look into like your interest and see if there's some cool games coming out, because there's a lot of really nice, interesting stuff coming out, and we have a lot to look forward to in games. We got like obviously like Scott and I are really excited for like Wolverine coming out later this year. There's just a lot of really cool stuff. I'm really excited for Forza. Like I just want to drive around Japan. Like that'll be fun. That'll be a fun distraction from everything going on when that happens.
I'm gonna play some Marathon this weekend. We're gonna keep playing some Rivals. I haven't
touched Rivals in almost 3 weeks.
I'm gonna have Lego. Yeah, I played a little bit last week, but I think when that next season comes out, I think.
Well, dude, they had all the leaks for or the leaks that event happened with all the voice actors and stuff.
The LA event,
where they basically confirmed it's going to be White Tiger or not White Tiger, another like original-ish character. I think was from Future Fight. It's from the Luna Snows group, I think.
Okay.
That like group that her and the Iron Fist from this game are a part of. The Korean group, or the Southeast, the Asian like group, superhero group, and then also Black Cat. So
yes, I did see Black Cat. Yes, I did see that.
So that'll be fun. Yeah. They announced all the Avengers game modes, the tie-in modes. That'll be fun.
Right. Yeah, there's plenty of us to get back into.
Yeah, there's reasons to get back into it, and I'll get back into it. Yeah. I've just got like actual reasons to play games now.
I'll go Batman in May.
True.
Galactic Racer hopefully this year still.
There's a lot of good games.
I'd like to see a date just so I don't lose my mind, but we'll see.
Don't worry about it. You'll get Summer Game Fest. You'll get it at Summer Game Fest probably.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be a summer game.
I'm playing more Helldivers as well.
I saw you playing that with Mango. I've seen a bunch of people get back into Helldivers.
It's just so solid.
It is good. There's a lot of solid games. Anyways, I don't really have we're at the end of our rope here. I don't really have a lot of comments like to ask for. So if you haven't already commented or haven't sent something in, feel free to comment anything about any of the topics we had today. Send us a question or some kind of like mailbag of a topic you might want to hear us talk about, or like a what if you want to talk about, Scott and I will maybe think of more of those the trades, because that was a very fun analogy. I'm kind of thinking of like, or like maybe like the dream studio situation, like what deals could you make to like, you get this, we get this studio to make a game in this franchise kind of thing, kind of like how Sega made the Sega team that would become RGG made F-Zero GX, like that kind of stuff. That kind of thing. We'll see.
That would be fun. We should do it.
Yeah. So anyways, go check out our other stuff. If you want to come hang out when I stream, links are down below. We'll see you next week, hopefully with better news and God, we need more wins. Just like we need some W's here.
We'll get something.
All right, later.